Chapter 1380. Chen Tian had taken over Gooden's position these days, sitting at the entrance of the villa's living room, eating and sleeping here, becoming another door god. Gooden breathed a sigh of relief as he saw this. He was a calculative man, and this was a test for Chen Tian. If he really did his job well, then he wouldn't mind recommending him to Lin Yi when he came back. Chen Tian didn't mention a word about Gooden's injury to Gonggao and Jiaoqi. He wasn't a calculative person, but he knew that his boss wanted him to keep it a secret, and it had to be something important. He couldn't just talk about it. Chu Villa, other than having Chen Tian as Meng Yao and Yushu's bodyguard, there wasn't much of a change. Jiang Wen, on the other hand, knew that Gooden had killed Jin Wudi, but he wasn't afraid of anything. He was always in the dark, so he wasn't worried that Gooden would come to him. However, Gooden's identity pissed him off even more. Fuck, this Gooden is Lin Yi's follower. Jiang Wen's face darkened after seeing the news, raging. Lin Yi has a close relationship with that Lingshan bitch, so it's most likely that Lin Yi is the one who snitched it out. The news came from that Gooden. Calm down, young Master Wen. Killing Jin Wudi isn't a big deal. My biochemical experiments are in the late stages, and in time I'll be able to develop a great strength pill. If a normal person eats it, they'll be able to punch armored vehicles and kick UFOs. The professor said faintly, plus this time, other than getting money, our plan is to screw Lin Yi over, right? Even if Lin Yi and Lingshan are close, Lingshan won't be able to protect Lin Yi in front of the evidence. If she dares to do anything, then we'll ruin her name as well. With Lingshan gone, it'll be easier for us to get money in Songshan. Yeah, you're right. Is the test subject here yet? Jiang Wen nodded. It's already here. I'm currently doing the last bit of stimulation on him. The Firewolf gang's best plastic surgeon and hypnotist are also working hard to ensure that there won't be any mistakes, the professor said. Before this, his status was equal to Jiang Wen. One could even say that he came here to do some experiments under the orders of the Firewolves. Helping Jiang Wen was secondary. But now, with Jiang Wen earning more and more money for the Firewolves, Jiang Wen's position was rising as well. Every single idea he came up with was one of those profit-making businesses that didn't require any capital. Even the leader of the Firewolves branch was looking up to him. And so, the professor became Jiang Wen's follower. He had to listen to Jiang Wen's orders. Very good. Jiang Wen nodded. Let's see how arrogant Lin Yi can be then. Lin Yi, who was sitting at the entrance of the underground palace, couldn't help but sneeze. It was already the second day, and Xiaoka and Old Hay still hadn't found any secrets in the stone pillars. After a few detailed checks, they confirmed that there weren't any mechanisms or buttons on the pillars. In other words, every pillar was the same. From the outside there wasn't any difference. Damn it. Xiaoka slammed her palm on the pillar. This was the 100th time she checked the pillars, but she still couldn't find anything. It annoyed her. Dong, the stone pillar made a crisp sound under Xiaoka's attack. Empty? Xiaoka paused. Old Hay, Lingshan, and Yutian turned to look at Xiaoka. They all copied Xiaoka's actions and started hitting the pillars in front of them. Each pillar made a crisp sound, but the sound was different. They're all empty. Is there some secret in the pillars? Should we open one and see? Old Hay suggested. No. Xiaoka frowned and pointed at the top of the pillar. The entire palace is supported by these pillars. Breaking one wouldn't guarantee the safety of this place. Then what do you mean, Miss Flying Sparrow? Old Hay asked. Let me think about it. Xiaoka patted the pillar in front of her and the other pillars nearby. Suddenly, a look of joy flashed across Xiaoka's face as if she'd found a clue. Everyone move aside and let us have the pillars. Old Hay, Lingshan, and Yutian obeyed and left the pillar. Xiaoka knocked on every pillar in the palace, and after listening to the sounds, she stood in the middle of the palace and pondered for a while. Then she started knocking on different pillars in a seemingly random pattern. Old Hay, Lingshan, Yutian, and even Elder Yu were all confused. What are you doing? Elder Yu couldn't help but ask. As far as he was concerned, this Xiaoka was just running around for no reason. Don't disturb her. Lin Yi stopped Elder Yu. If I'm not wrong, there's a total of 7 pillars in this palace, and each pillar represents a musical scale. The Flying Sparrow must have found the connection between the scales. Perhaps it's the elegy on the wall? That's right. The notes that you, Miss Flying Sparrow, struck out, although the tempo was a bit off, the notes matched the melody of the elegy on the painting on the stone wall perfectly. Lingshan knew a thing or two about music, and with Lin Yi's reminder she was able to see the connection between the two easily. Elder Yu nodded and Old Hay's eyes flashed with shock. It seemed that this tomb wasn't as simple as it seemed. The Flying Sparrow wasn't hired for nothing. The distance between the pillars was huge, and even with Xiaoka's qinggong, it still took her more than half an hour to complete the song. Fo. After hitting the last note, Xiaoka finally breathed out in relief. The designer was too much of a scammer, wasn't he? If it were a grave robber with poor stamina, they'd probably die from exhaustion. But then again, grave robbers with poor stamina wouldn't be able to do this. Watch out! Lin Yi suddenly yelled, and the entire floor of the palace started shaking. Lin Yi had called out to be careful because the jade had suddenly given him a warning, and he'd called out subconsciously. But his warning was pointless. It had only been a few seconds since the ground started shaking and cracking, and no one had time to react. The floor of the hall split into two, with the center of the hall as the horizontal line. One on each side was collapsing rapidly, tilting towards the sides. Chapter 1381. In just a few seconds, the ground between the two palaces became vertical, and the people on the ground, due to gravity, all fell down rapidly. The stone pillars in the hall were still hanging vertically on the ceiling of the hall. It was only at this moment that the crowd realized that these stone pillars were not used to support the weight of the hall, but to activate the mechanism. Lin Yi, Yutian, Lingshan, Old He, Elder Yu, and General Wei Wu were on one side of the ground, while Xiaoka was on the other side. But although Lin Yi's warning was a little late, the group wasn't weak. At the last moment, they managed to grab onto the edge of the ground. The ground was vertical, but there was still some friction between the two sides, and they were all hanging on the edge. Lin Yi looked at Xiaoka, realizing that she was prepared as well, using her eagle claws to hang on the edge of the ground. Lin Yi let out a breath of relief. Old He was the only one who didn't have any kung fu. He saw that everyone had reacted, but he couldn't do anything. The ground was vertical and he fell straight down. Ah, help! Old He cried. Lingshan frowned, subconsciously wanting to let go and jump down to save Old He. Her goal this time was to catch these grave robbers, and now that a few of them were dead, there was only Old He left. If Old He died too, then what was the point of this mission? But Lin Yi knew what Lingshan was thinking. He wouldn't let her take the risk. I'll go. With that, he let go and jumped down, reaching out to grab Old He. He then stepped on the stone wall beside him, returning to the edge of the ground. The entire movement was done in one smooth motion, without a trace of sloppiness. This was an easy thing for Lin Yi, but Lingshan didn't have enough experience, and Lin Yi was afraid that something would happen to her. Old He almost came back from the death. His gratitude towards the male thief was like a raging river. He took out the eagle claw hook and mimicked Xiaoka, hanging it on the edge of the ground. Thank you, male thief. Old He said, still fearful. You're still useful. Everyone's a part of their intelligence, and at this point we need to preserve our strength. Lin Yi said faintly. In fact, if it weren't for Lingshan, Lin Yi wouldn't care about Old He's life. What's going on? Why is it so dark and deep down like a bottomless pit? Elder Yu frowned. Did they activate some sort of death trap? Lin Yi was hesitated. He couldn't tell if this was the right entrance to the palace, but evidently the person who built this place wouldn't have used this method to get to the palace. If a normal person fell down, they wouldn't be able to survive. Plus, Lin Yi could clearly feel a dangerous aura down there. The jade's warning hadn't stopped. Otherwise, according to the usual situation, he would already be hanging on the edge of the ground, and he could jump up and return to the previous tunnel. There shouldn't be any danger, so the only danger would come from the bottomless pit under his feet. This might be the entrance to the palace. Old He said after a sigh. This place does look like the legendary Tomb of Death. Tomb of Death? Elder Yu paused. What do you mean? Tomb of Death? It's the type of tomb that you can only enter but not get out. When it was designed, there wasn't an exit. This tomb was built from the outside to the inside. Once you go in, you won't be able to get out. You'll have to stay with the tomb forever. Old He explained. At that point, cold sweat started forming on Old He's forehead. If that was the case, then he'd really lose his life this time. Then what do we do? Doesn't that mean we won't be able to get out after we go in? Elder Yu humphed. I don't know either. This is something from the legends. It's my first time seeing an entrance like this. Old He smiled bitterly. At that moment, the stopped mechanism seemed to be activated again. The two parts of the ground that were perpendicular to the ground suddenly rose up again, as if they were going to merge back together. Not good, the mechanism's coming back up, Lin Yi said. Do we go down or not? Lin Yi had made up his mind. Even if these people didn't go down, he would go down. Even if it was the death tomb, he had to go down. Even if he couldn't get out, as long as he got the medical notes and had General Wei Wu by his side, he would blast his way out even if he had to use a pure energy bomb. That. Elder Yu and Old He were hesitating. Lingshan and Yutian, on the other hand, were waiting for Lin Yi's decision. If Linny wanted to go down, then they'd do it. This place is the tomb of death, but if we go down we should be able to get out, Xiaoka said. Only the place where the coffin is kept is a dead end and we can't get out. The other places should be fine. Are you sure? Old He paused. I'm pretty sure. First, Zhang Liju is a healer and a healer has a kind heart. Even if he's about to die, he wouldn't be so evil as to let his workers die with him. Xiaoka analyzed. Second, if it really is a dead end and we can't get out, then what's the point of having a spirit beast guarding the door? Wouldn't that be unnecessary? You're right. Old He nodded. He was an experienced grave robber, and so he understood after hearing Xiaoka's words. Alright, let's go down. Flying Sparrow, when the ground is about to close up, let go. That way you'll be closer to me and it'll be safer if we go down together. Linny said to Xiaoka. Alright. Xiaoka agreed without hesitation. She knew how dangerous it was down there and Linny treated her a little special. No matter what, Linny couldn't harm her. This time, Elder Yu and Old He didn't think that Linny was being too concerned about Xiaoka. Since Linny could even save Old He, it wasn't strange for him to care about Xiaoka's safety. Chapter 1382. Linny had General Weiwu, Xiaoka, Lingshan, and Yuqian, 3 people, and a dog was already hard enough. He couldn't bring Old He along. Elder Yu didn't want to bring people, but thinking of the danger, he grabbed Old He unwillingly. Jump. When the two sides were about to connect, Linny yelled and grabbed Xiaoka. Yuqian and Lingshan grabbed Linny on both sides, and they started descending rapidly. The abyss was so deep that they couldn't see the bottom. With the light from the palace, even practitioners with amazing eyesight could only see a few hundred meters down, and it wasn't the bottom. One could imagine how deep this place was. Don't hug me so tight, I can't breathe. Elder Yu wasn't happy with Old He hugging him so tightly. You're not a beauty, why are you hugging me so tight? Sorry, I'm a bit scared. Old He said awkwardly. I'll let go when we get down, Elder Yu humphed, but his eyes didn't even blink as he watched Lin Yi's movements. But as they got deeper and deeper, the light got dimmer and dimmer, and Elder Yu couldn't see Lin Yi's movements anymore. Male thief, what's down there? Is it dangerous? Elder Yu couldn't see Lin Yi at all, so he asked worriedly. Lin Yi couldn't see what was beneath him, but he closed his eyes and entered the jade space. He used his divine sense to sense what was going on around him, and everything around him became clear to him. It was a square tunnel and the 4 sides were smooth stone walls. There was no place to step on, and unless you wore shoes with high resistance you might be able to stick to the wall. Even if you stuck to the wall temporarily you'd fall off. Even though it was bright as day, Lin Yi still couldn't see what was down there. It was still a bottomless abyss. I don't know, you're an earth class and you're always afraid of this and that, what are you doing out here? It's safest to cultivate at home, Lin Yi said mockingly. Ignorant brat. My life is 10,000 times more important than you. It doesn't matter if you die, but I'm like porcelain, do you understand? Elder Yu blushed at Lin Yi's words, but he still defended himself. Ha. Lin Yi smiled sarcastically and didn't say anything else. Xiaoka had been hugged by Lin Yi before, but it was an emergency and he put her down after a while. She hadn't been hugged this tightly before, and now that she was leaning against Lin Yi's broad chest and smelling Lin Yi's manly scent, Xiaoka felt her heart palpitate and her face blushed. She'd never been this close to a boy in her entire life, and she'd never even thought about romantic love. She'd only cared about the orphanage ever since she could remember, and she'd never even thought about romantic love. Who would want to marry a burden like her? Unless her head was broken. Big families wouldn't be interested in a female cat burglar like her, and those without money wouldn't be able to support a large orphanage. As a result, Xiaoka put this aside for now and kept her chastity. If the orphanage really needed her, even if she didn't find a rich boyfriend, she could still sell her virginity for a good price, right? As long as it could help the orphanage, it would be fine. However, the male thief in front of her did make her heart flutter a little. Ever since she was young, other than her master, no one had ever cared about her like this, and no man had ever done this to her. Especially some of the missions from the Steel sect, they were all life-threatening. Even if Xiaoka was as pretty as a goddess, no one would go easy on her. This was all about profit, and with money, it wasn't easy to find beauties. Why would he want to find her? And so, every time Xiaoka went on a mission with the Steel sect people, she had to be on the lookout for being framed. There was no love between them at all. The male thief, on the other hand, was different. Whenever she was in danger or trouble, he would always stand up for her. She didn't know if the male thief really wanted her beauty like Old He had said, but no matter what, she felt a ripple in her heart. She had a good impression of the male thief. Most importantly, she felt that the male thief gave her a very familiar feeling, as if she'd seen him somewhere before, but she couldn't remember who. Could this male thief be her Prince Charming? Xiaoka started to think about random things in this tense situation, but when she thought about the female thief beside Lin Yi, she felt a little discouraged. He already had a partner, so he probably wouldn't be able to marry her. Of course, that wasn't what Xiaoka cared about the most. What she cared about was whether or not the male thief was willing to help the orphanage. If he couldn't, then there was no point in talking about anything else. Lin Yi didn't know that Xiaoka had so many weird thoughts popping out of her head. If he knew, he'd probably throw Xiaoka out right away. After about half an hour, everyone was still falling at a high speed. This was enough to show how bottomless this underground palace was. Even after such a long time, they still hadn't reached the bottom. No one knew how the people in the past built this place. Elder Yu was a little impatient and worried. Male thief, we won't just fall into the center, will we? Oh, then you can make a TV show when you get back. Lin Yi said, annoyed. This Elder Yu's strength didn't match his guts. He was as cowardly as a mouse, afraid of death. He didn't look like an Earth class at all. Of course, if Jianghu, who was already dead, heard this, he'd probably start crying. It was because he wasn't afraid of death that he really died. I think there's something wrong with this tomb. Elder Yu humphed and didn't say anything else. After a while, Lin Yi finally saw the bottom. It was so deep that he couldn't see the bottom. But relatively speaking, this tunnel did have a bottom. At the bottom of the tunnel, there were many sharp weapons like a large nail board, the sharp end pointing upwards. If you didn't have any protection, you'd probably be pierced through if you fell down. If it was a normal person, they'd die, but Elder Yu was an Earth class after all. He was strong and at most he'd be injured, but it wasn't life-threatening. Chapter 1383. The tunnel wasn't straight, but it was in Anne's shape. Perhaps it was for convenience, but Lin Yi didn't see any use for it. All the tunnels in the tomb were like this, going up, down, left, right, and so on. The ground above them was completely sealed, and this caused the tunnel to be extremely dark. There wasn't a single trace of light. There were only a few dozen meters left before they reached the bottom, and Lin Yi didn't warn Elder Yu. Instead, he looked for a way out. Below them was a wall of sharp weapons, but to the left was an empty tunnel. With the right timing, Lin Yi would be able to jump over it. 30 meters. 20 meters. 10 meters. Lin Yi abruptly stepped on the wall on his right and pushed off, bringing Xiaoka and the others flying out. As he flew, he yelled, "Careful." A second later, Lin Yi and the others landed safely, and there was a poochie sound followed by Elder Yu's cry of pain. Elder Yu, what's wrong? You didn't get tricked, did you? I warned you as soon as I noticed something was wrong. You're not that unlucky, are you? Lin Yi pretended to be concerned. Male thief, why didn't you warn me earlier? Did you do it on purpose? Elder Yu was in so much pain. Many parts of his body were pierced by the nail boards. Old Hay, on the other hand, was fine. He was hugging Elder Yu's chest like an octopus, and now that he heard there was danger, he hugged Elder Yu even tighter. Xiaoka took out a flashlight and shone it in the direction of the sound. She realized that Elder Yu was in a horse-riding position. His feet were pierced by sharp weapons, and his crotch was also pierced by a sharp weapon. It was a patch of blood. Your balls are hurting. Lin Yi looked at Elder Yu. Good job, let's see how you fight me later. Male thief, you did it on purpose, didn't you? Elder Yu looked at Lin Yi's gloating face and got pissed. He flew over, his feet and crotch covered in blood. You can think whatever you want. Since I can sense danger, why can't you? I've already reminded you. What does it have to do with me if you get hurt again? Lin Yi said faintly, besides, you're already so old. It's useless for you to have that thing. It doesn't matter if it's pricked. How do you know I'm useless? Elder Yu glared angrily. I've never had children in my life, and I was planning to get married and have kids the day I broke through Sky Class. You won't be able to break through. Don't worry, Lin Yi comforted. Elder Yu realized that he might as well not talk to Lin Yi. Talking to him would only piss him off. Old Hay laughed dryly as he got down from Elder Yu's body. That was close, but Elder Yu had to suffer for him. Both his legs and balls were injured, but Elder Yu was an Earth class. Naturally, it wouldn't be a big deal. It was just a bit of pain and anger. This was another long hallway, but they didn't have the searchlights anymore. The searchlights from before had already fallen down when the floor tilted, and they'd been smashed into smithereens. All that was left was the torchlight that everyone brought with them. Elder Yu was regretting it a little. He should have shown the torchlight below him and he wouldn't have ended up like this. But he wasn't experienced enough. It was still Lin Yi, Xiaoka, Lingshan, Yutian, and Wei Wu walking in front, with Elder Yu and Old Hay trailing behind. Elder Yu's legs were injured and he was limping, but his speed wasn't slow. This should be the main part of the tomb, Xiaoka said suddenly. Oh. Old He and Elder Yu saw it as well. Not far from the hallway there were some displays. There were bookshelves, display racks and boxes. We're finally here. A smile appeared on Elder Yu's face, and his legs and crotch weren't hurting as much anymore. He took a few steps forward, ready to find what he was looking for. But when he got in front of the displays he stopped and turned to Old He. Go open these chests for me, let me see what's inside. It seemed like Elder Yu was afraid of ropes after being bitten by a snake. He didn't dare act rashly anymore. Old He smiled bitterly, not daring to disobey. He walked over carefully to one of the chests, looking around for a long time, his face a little conflicted. What are you waiting for? Elder Yu barked impatiently. Elder Yu, forgive me for being blunt, but these things are at the edge of the palace and I don't think they're anything good. They're used to get rid of low-level grave robbers. Old He was speaking the truth. Things that were placed in the open usually weren't that valuable. I told you to open it, so open it. What are you waiting for? Elder Yu humphed, not understanding this. Flying Sparrow, why don't you open the chests and all the things in here belong to you? Old He didn't dare open the chests, and there was one thing he didn't say. These benefits on the surface were mostly for fools. Once you opened it, danger would follow. No way, I don't give my things to anyone, Elder Yu said after hearing Old He's words. Old He felt a little annoyed, thinking that if you didn't save his life, he'd call you an idiot. What you want is so valuable, why would you put it in the open? Did you think the grave robbers were idiots? Then you open it, it's all yours. Lin Yi said faintly as he looked at Elder Yu. You. Elder Yu was losing to Lin Yi, and Lin Yi was making him blush. Isn't it just a chest? Lin Yi walked over and opened the chest casually. When Lin Yi opened the chest, the jade didn't warn him, so Lin Yi wasn't worried about trouble. The chest was opened and there was a neat box of gold ingot inside. Other than that, there wasn't anything else. Old He and Elder Yu looked at each other, not showing much interest. Elder Yu's goal this time was these three things, and whether it was the common house Yu or the hidden house Yu, they didn't lack money, so this box of gold ingot wasn't worth much. Chapter 1384. Seeing that Lin Yi didn't find anything wrong with the chest, Elder Yu gathered his courage and walked over, quickly opening the other chests. Other than gold and silver, there was nothing else. Elder Yu was a little disappointed. You're right, let's go look at the display rack. These things. Xiaoka looked greedily at the treasures in the chests and pointed at them. Flying Sparrow, if you like it, I'll give it all to you. Old He naturally didn't care about these things. He might as well be a good person and give them to Xiaoka so she could work harder. Really? Xiaoka paused and was overjoyed. She took out a bag and prepared to take all the gold back. To Xiaoka, these antiques weren't as practical as the gold. It was easy to get rid of and it was money. Plus, with Xiaoka's personality, she'd rather die from exhaustion than give up on money. Lin Yi's mouth twitched. The Xiaoka was really greedy. These things were heavy and it was hard to move around with them. But thinking about it, even if there was something good, Xiaoka wouldn't be able to snatch it. It was better to take something that others didn't want. Xiaoka started putting the gold ingot into her bag, her smile almost reaching her ears. This gold was enough to support the orphanage for a long time. How could Xiaoka not be excited? Xiaoka finished one chest and went to another, but when her hand touched the gold bar in the chest, Lin Yi's jade emitted a warning signal. Above the originally empty passageway, a huge rock had appeared out of nowhere. It appeared above Xiaoka silently, and when Xiaoka touched the gold bar, the rock in the sky made a cracking sound and fell down abruptly. The target was Xiaoka's head. Careful. Lin Yi yelled, and Xiaoka heard something above her head as well. She looked up subconsciously and saw a giant rock falling down just like that. Xiaoka was scared out of her wits. She didn't want to accept this. She was about to get so much gold and the orphanage would have a place to live. That was such a wonderful thing, but why was she going to die here? She was so unlucky. Speaking of which, Xiaoka was a smart thief and her actions in the tomb proved that, but this time she was blinded by the money. Plus, when she took the first chest of gold ingot she was actually on guard, but nothing happened, so she let her guard down. She saw Elder Yu and Old He walk to the display cabinet far away, and Lin Yi and the others were still waiting for her. She was a little anxious, and that was why she made such a huge mistake. Lin Yi saw that Xiaoka was staring at the rock like a fool, and didn't know how to dodge. He quickly ran to Xiaoka and carried her, running to the side and barely dodging the rock. There was a loud crash, and the rock smashed into the place where the treasure chests were, sinking a few chests into the ground. One could see how strong the rock was, and if it hit a person they'd be dead for sure. My gold. Xiaoka turned around and saw that her bag was smashed under the boulder as well. She felt a little heartache, all that money was gone. Seeing Xiaoka's greedy behavior, Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She almost lost her life and she was still worried about gold? This person couldn't be that greedy, could she? Lin Yi subconsciously pinched Xiaoka. You almost died and you still want money? Xiaoka, can you not be so greedy? You're so weak and you still want to come out and embarrass yourself. I can save you once, but can I save you 100 times? Xiaoka yelped when Lin Yi pinched her, because Lin Yi's hand was on her chest. So she didn't hear what Lin Yi said and was embarrassed. Your hand? What's wrong with my hand? Lin Yi was stunned and he didn't react. Lin Yi was still angry and he didn't notice where his hand was. Hearing Xiaoka's words, Lin Yi moved his hand subconsciously. Your hand. You're still pinching. Xiaoka was about to explode and she jumped down from Lin Yi. You're taking advantage of me? Lin Yi was stunned and he looked at his hand, thinking back to the feeling before. It seemed like he was touching Xiaoka's chest. Damn it, don't be so miserable, right? It wasn't easy for him to act like a hooligan, and he didn't even realize it and he let go without feeling anything. I didn't notice in the rush. Lin Yi was a little embarrassed, but he was telling the truth. Lin Yi really didn't notice these small details before, and in order to save Xiaoka, he didn't care if his hand touched Xiaoka's chest or not. Oh. Xiaoka wasn't stupid. Thinking back to the situation, she knew that Lin Yi didn't do it on purpose, but being taken advantage of for no reason made her feel like she was at a disadvantage. Thank you. All right, let's go. Lin Yi said faintly and he turned around, following Elder Yu and Old He. Lin Yi's goal was Zhang Liju's medical notes, and he couldn't let Elder Yu take it away. Oh. Xiaoka looked at the boulder, unwilling to leave. She knew that she couldn't get it back anymore, and she sighed before following Lin Yi. Yu Qin followed as well, not saying much. What happened between Lin Yi and Xiaoka didn't concern him much. Ling Shan, on the other hand, frowned, feeling that Lin Yi was flirting with a female thief. She didn't like it. In front of them, Elder Yu and Old He were studying the items in the cabinets. They were all antiques and every single one of them wasn't ordinary and they were worth a lot of money. Of course this was relative. These things weren't worth much in the past and that was why they were placed on the outskirts. But time had changed and these were all real antiques now. Their value was naturally different. Xiaoka pursed her lips and didn't say anything. She was still feeling dizzy. Did she get MO just like that? Looking at Lin Yi's back, Xiaoka's eyes flashed with a complicated expression. Right, what did he call her? Xiaoka? Chapter 1385. Could it be that he knew her? Did he know her real name? One had to know that Xiaoka's name had never been made public in the thieves' sect. She'd always used the Flying Sparrow hero, so how did he know her name? She'd felt a sense of familiarity when she looked at him. Was he a friend she knew in real life? But did he really call her Xiaoka? Xiaoka wasn't too sure. Could it have been a hallucination when she was so shy? But the male thief didn't call her that? Xiaoka didn't know what was going on. What are you doing? You're walking all over the place. Are you pretending to be a crab? Ling Shan was already pissed off, and seeing Xiaoka walking all over the place, she got even angrier. Walk 2 steps faster or the man's going to come back to save you. Oh. Xiaoka looked at Ling Shan, feeling wronged. It's your man who's acting like a pervert, alright? Why was she blaming her now? Naturally, Xiaoka assumed that Ling Shan was pissed off because she and Lin Yi were in a relationship, and being seen by the female thief was pissed off. But one had to admit that Xiaoka's guess was pretty reliable. She was almost killed, she's still in shock. Carry her if you think she's slow. Lin Yi frowned as he turned back to look at Ling Shan. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't think too much about it. He thought that Ling Shan was pissed off because she was a female thief, and wanted to punish her. Ling Shan bit her lips, she was about to explode. Why was she treating a female thief better than her? Am I that hard to move your heart? She was a bit of an idiot before, but she wasn't anymore. She was much calmer and more mature now, no longer the hothead she used to be. Was she still not as good as a female thief? Xiaoka opened her mouth, stunned. She looked at Ling Shan's chest heaving up and down and couldn't help but sigh. Why did it seem like the male thief wasn't treating her well? Could it be that he was getting tired of the old and was interested in her? With that thought, Xiaoka started to feel conflicted. Did this mean that she had a chance to kill the female thief and become one? But it seemed that if the male thief liked the new and got tired of the old, what if he replaced her after a while? What would happen to the orphanage if she became a withered flower and lost her capital? No, I have to think about it carefully. Although I have a good impression of the male thief, this is related to my life and the future of the orphanage. I can't act rashly. Xiaoke quickened her steps and followed, giving Lingshan an apologetic look. Lingshan didn't know what to do with Xiaoke. With Lin Yi here, there was no way she could bring her back. Whatever, she was here to catch the grave robber. She didn't want to cause more trouble. She was here to catch the grave robber. With Xiaoke as an example, Old He and Elder Yu didn't say anything, but the two of them became much more careful. They only looked at the antiques and utensils in the racks casually, keeping their eyes and ears open to all directions, paying attention to any incoming danger at all times. These are all normal utensils. Old He said faintly after looking. These were antiques, but they weren't worth much. They were the same as the pile of treasures in front of the door, just to fool people. They weren't made from famous official kills, and they belonged to the market. They were worth a few thousand to tens of thousands of kwai, and the most expensive one was only 100,000 or 200,000. Old He didn't care about that. If Old He didn't care about it, naturally Elder Yu wouldn't care either. Plus, Elder Yu was here for treasures, not money. His attention was on the qi-gathering pill and the medical notes, as well as the notes of the legendary refiner. Evidently, something as important as this should be kept in the vault or library or even in the main tomb. There was no way something as precious as this could be placed in a long hallway outside the tomb. Even so, Elder Yu still checked the utensils one by one, wanting to see if there was anything hidden inside. There's nothing I want. You guys can take it if you want. Elder Yu said faintly. Lin Yi walked over and looked at them one by one before leaving. Xiaoke was still in shock from what happened. She wanted to take a few utensils, but she was afraid that the rock would appear again. She shook her head and left with Lin Yi. Lingshan and Yutian weren't here to rob tombs, so it didn't matter if the things here were valuable or not. The group continued walking, and on the left and right side of the hallway, there were still treasure chests and display cabinets, but they all left after a few glances. Xiaoke, on the other hand, didn't dare to be greedy, and only took a few gold ingots from each chest. She didn't want to be greedy, and she still paid attention to the surroundings to see if there was any danger. Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xiaoke wasn't as greedy as before, but she was still greedy. Lin Yi had to help her predict danger when she took the gold ingot. What was this? Not far away, the group saw a bookshelf, and Elder Yu ran over quickly. He was only interested in books and pills, nothing else mattered to him. This was the first bookshelf he saw. Naturally he wouldn't let it go so easily. Lin Yi, on the other hand, followed quickly. Elder Yu wouldn't let these things go, and neither would he. The reason why Lin Yi kept using opportunities to trick Elder Yu was so that he could have an easier time in the fight. Elder Yu wasn't too happy with Lin Yi's actions, but he couldn't do anything about it. Lin Yi knew medicine, and so he could tell what the books on the bookshelf were. These were all medical books, but they weren't the only ones or the lost ones. These were all normal medical books and pharmacopoeias, and the bookstores in the market had copies of these books, so it wasn't strange at all. However, the real purpose of this bookshelf might be to confuse those little thieves who came in to steal. They didn't know that medical books were unique. The real value of these books was not the content inside, but the book itself. Ancient books were also a kind of antique. They could be collected by scholars or gifts to friends. Each book was worth a lot. Chapter 1386. Seeing that Lin Yi was already far away, Elder Yu pulled his eyes back unwillingly and followed. As far as he was concerned, Lin Yi was a careful man. Since Lin Yi was sure that there was nothing left, there was no point in looking. Plus, he didn't know much about antiques, and he felt that the male thief should be more professional than he was. There's a stone door in front, and after opening it, it should be the path to the main tomb, but there might be danger in there. Old He shone his flashlight not far away. These things at the door are obviously prepared for normal tomb robbers. Prepared my ass, it's for the dead, right? Lin Yi said faintly. The flying sparrow was almost smashed to death. Plus, the entrance to the tomb can only go down, not up. Normal tomb robbers wouldn't be able to get out after taking these things. Old He paused but nodded. Lin Yi's words made sense. The tomb robbers that could come here weren't simple people. How could there be any normal tomb robbers here? These things at the door were just triggers for the mechanism, and they weren't very valuable. Even if they were broken, it wouldn't be a waste. The stone door is the same as before, it's still a password lock, but my tools are all broken. It'll be very hard to open this door. Old He looked at the door. Elder Yu, do you have any good ideas? What good ideas can I have? Elder Yu said. I don't know about these things. You came here and you're just a piece of trash. You still want this and that. Lin Yi said faintly. If I'm not wrong, the password for this door should be the same as the one before. Tomb robbers who can come here are all masters, and it's only a matter of time for them to crack a mechanism like this. Even if they don't have the equipment, they can solve it with patience, so the designer wouldn't spend too much effort on this. What Lin Yi said was actually what Wuxia's data. As far as he was concerned, if there was a password in the tomb, then the password should be the same. Blackie paused. I'll try. Blackie was the one who cracked the password, so he had a deep impression of it. He moved the roulette on the stone door according to the previous set of numbers. Soon there was a crisp click and the stone door opened. Blackie looked at Lin Yi with admiration. You're really experienced. Let's not talk too much. Everyone be careful. There might be more traps here. Lin Yi glanced at the corridor behind the stone door and said. For some reason Lin Yi kept feeling that there was a faintly discernible dangerous aura inside, but the jade pendant didn't give him any warning. In other words, this dangerous aura wouldn't be dangerous if he didn't do anything, but if he triggered some major mechanism there might be great danger. Lin Yi's words made Elder Yu, who was about to walk in first, retract his feet immediately. He looked at the group warily. You guys go first. Lin Yi didn't even bother looking down on Elder Yu's cowardice. He'd never seen a practitioner so afraid of death. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't mind. He walked straight in, noticing that the hallway was different from before. There weren't any treasure chests or cabinets on either side of the hallway. Instead, there were doors on both sides of the stone walls at regular intervals. This is the main tomb. The rooms on both sides should be the funerary collection rooms and so on. The owner of this tomb was obviously a scholar, so the tomb was very practical. A few collection rooms should be enough for the owner of the tomb to rest in peace after his death. There's no need for the extravagance of an emperor's tomb. Old Hay said to Elder Yu as they walked. The things we want should be in these rooms. All right, let's open it. Elder Yu nodded and pointed at the first room. The stone doors here didn't have a password and could be opened directly. But Elder Yu didn't want anything unexpected to happen, and naturally he wouldn't open the door himself. Old Black gloomily opened the stone door. Nothing strange happened, which made everyone breathe a sigh of relief. The room was huge, but there weren't many things inside. There was only one shelf with some bronze and porcelain items. However, the things inside made Old Hay and Xiaoka's eyes light up. Lao He quickly ran over and looked at the items on the shelves. His face was filled with greed and shock. In the eyes of a discerning person like Lao He, he could determine the value of these items at a glance. Each one of them was a priceless treasure. This bronze cauldron should be from the spring and autumn period. Old Hay looked at the cauldron on the shelf. Also, it should be a royal item. There's a mark here. I only want money. Xiaoka looked at the things on the shelf. They were all rare treasures, but to her they were useless. You're not taking any of these? Old Hay frowned. There were too many things here and he couldn't take too much by himself. Now that they were in the tomb, he didn't know how to get out. Not only would it be hard for him to move around, but the porcelain items would break easily. It was a classic case of biting off more than he could chew. So, Old Hay only wanted to take a few things that were easy to carry. That cauldron was an antique with a sky-high price. If he did it right, it could easily sell for over 100 million in an auction. I can't get rid of it even if I take it. Xiaoka shrugged. Alright, I'll give you the 10% I promised you. Old Hay sighed and decided not to go back on his words. The male thief wasn't a good person, and Xiaoka had been very useful along the way, so he'd rather give her 10% of the profits. The problem was, how were they going to get out of the tomb now? It was obviously unrealistic to go back the way they came. Not to mention that the ground above had merged. Even if it hadn't, it would still be difficult to climb up. The entire passage was a huge S shape, and the stone walls were smooth enough to be used as a slide. When they fell, they didn't feel any obstruction when they bumped into the stone walls. It could be said that this kind of place was easy to go down, but difficult to climb up unless they had something like a suction cup. But this roundabout route, if they didn't rely on gravity to slide down naturally, how long would it take to climb up? Chapter 1387. Just these few items alone could bring him an income of over 100 million. This trip was already worth it. Lin Yi took a look and saw that Old Hay only took some flashy stuff. They were good for collecting, but they weren't really useful. He wasn't a medical person. I'm done. What about you guys? You guys don't want anything? Old Hay turned to Lin Yi and Lingshan. Elder Yu had already looked through everything in the store. There wasn't anything he wanted. As for the other stuff, it didn't matter to him whether they were valuable or not. Lin Yi's eyes had locked onto a set of needles the moment he entered the room. Although Lin Yi looked calm on the surface, his heart was raging with waves of shock. If he wasn't wrong, that set of needles was the long-lost Fushinai needles. Fushinai needles, Lin Yi had read about it in a medical book. It was the miracle of acupuncture. It was said that this needle could bring the dead back to life, and all the needles used today were derived from the Fushi-9 needles. Whether or not this thing was that amazing, Linny didn't know, but it was true that it had been lost for a long time. Acupuncture was invented by Fushi, one of the 3 sovereigns in the ancient times. Whether Fushi's 9 needles were used by Fushi was unknown. However, this set of heaven-defying godly tools had been mentioned in many strange and unusual books. Lin Yi recognized the Fushi-9 needles in front of him because he saw the picture of the Fushi-9 needles, but he couldn't tell if it was real or fake. Lin Yi could only ask the old man for confirmation, but it was real if he wanted to keep it in his pocket. Because Lingshan was here, Lin Yi didn't want to put her in a difficult position. With her personality, she'd probably make him hand it over after this, so Lin Yi didn't move. He bent down and whispered something to General Wei Wu before standing up and leaving the room. "Let's go, since there's nothing else, let's go to the next room." Lin Yi walked out first. Lingshan and Yu Tian followed closely behind, with Elder Yu, Old He and Xiaoke all leaving as well. General Wei Wu was the last to leave, but no one noticed that one of its claws was carrying something. The second collection room was obviously a place to store all kinds of finished pills and herbs. As soon as he entered, he saw a neat row of medicine cabinets. Every small drawer was labeled with the name and usage of the medicine. It was obvious that they were commonly used by the owner of the tomb when he was alive. Lin Yi quietly took the 9 Fushi needles from General Wei Wu and kept it in his pocket. General Wei Wu could understand what Lin Yi was saying. As soon as he stepped in, Elder Yu started looking for the qi-gathering pill he wanted, scanning the list of items one by one. Lin Yi wasn't in a rush to find any qi-gathering pills, but he opened a few boxes casually. What disappointed him was that the boxes were empty, there weren't any ingredients stored inside. The owner of the tomb probably knew that most of the ingredients couldn't be kept for long, so he didn't put them inside. The only reason he kept this set of medicine cabinets was because it was something he used before he died, and he was sentimental about it. This room was clearly much more full than the previous one. The walls were all filled with medicine cabinets, so many that it was dazzling. Lin Yi confirmed that the medicine cabinets were mostly empty. He was a little disappointed. Lin Yi had placed his hope of finding the fire spirit's fruit in here, but it seemed like that hope was very slim now. While Elder Yu was looking for qi-gathering pills, Lin Yi was looking for the fruit as well, but Lin Yi was a master of medicine, and his eyes were better than Elder Yu's. After Lin Yi finished one cabinet, Elder Yu was only halfway through another. Old He and Xiaoke naturally weren't interested in the things in front of them, and Lingshan and Yu Tian were helping Lin Yi look for the fruit. "It's here." Lingshan suddenly pointed at a drawer. "Where?" Elder Yu heard Lingshan scream and subconsciously jumped in front of Lingshan, scaring her. "Where's the qi-gathering pill? Is there something wrong with you?" "What qi-gathering pill?" "I'm talking about a type of herb." Lingshan wasn't happy with Elder Yu's sudden appearance. Elder Yu looked at the drawers. There really wasn't a qi-gathering pill, and he couldn't help but be disappointed. He humphed and dodged to the side, but with his suspicious personality, he wouldn't just leave like that. He wanted to see what Lingshan had found. Fire spirit's fruit. Lin Yi looked at the label on the drawer and his breathing quickened. There really was something like this? And it seemed like there was more here? Lin Yi walked over quickly and opened the drawer, but what disappointed Lin Yi was that the drawer was empty, just like the other herbs. Phew. Lin Yi sighed. "There's nothing." Elder Yu didn't know why Lin Yi was looking for this fruit, but seeing that there was nothing in the drawer, he didn't care anymore and turned to look for the qi-gathering pill. Lin Yi closed the drawer, disappointed, but it was within his expectations. After calming himself down, he started looking for the qi-gathering pill Elder Yu was talking about. Soon Lin Yi's eyes landed on a drawer with qi-gathering pills written on it, but Elder Yu hadn't noticed it yet. "What you're looking for is here." Lin Yi walked over and opened the drawer. Lin Yi knew that his every move was under Elder Yu's watchful eye, and he couldn't sneak around under his nose. Even if he didn't tell him, Elder Yu would definitely find this place soon, so Lin Yi might as well just tell him. There was no need to start a fight with Elder Yu over something like this. Lin Yi still needed to preserve his strength to look for the medical notes. This time there was really something in the drawer. They were 2 small medicine bottles, each of which was small and exquisite, sparkling and translucent. Each of them was labeled with the words, "Qi-gathering pill," written in seal script. At this time, Elder Yu came over as well. He looked at the 2 bottles of qi-gathering pills in the drawer, greed in his eyes. Who knew what he was thinking? "The qi-gathering pill is here. I've looked, there are 2 bottles here and each bottle has 1 qi-gathering pill. According to our agreement, we'll each take one, so I'll take one of the bottles." Lin Yi said as he reached for one of the bottles. Chapter 1388. Slow? What do you mean? Lin Yi raised his head and looked at Elder Yu sharply. Are you going back on your word? Over there are some other elixirs, chi replenishing pills, detoxification pills, etc. Those should be more useful to you. Why don't you give these 2 chi gathering pills to me and I'll give you all the other elixirs? Elder Yu pointed at the cabinet not far away. Are you stupid? Lin Yi looked at Elder Yu like he was an idiot. We agreed that you only want the chi gathering pills and the medical notes. If there are 2 chi gathering pills, I'll have one, and if you find the medical notes, I'll make a copy. Other than that, you don't need anything else. I can take the rest of the elixirs if I want. What does it have to do with you? Elder Yu's face turned ugly after hearing Lin Yi's words. Lin Yi was right, he did say that before, but he thought that there was only 1 chi gathering pill in the tomb. He didn't think that there would be 2. Now that he saw 2, he was tempted. He wanted to keep one for himself and give the other to House Yu because he was an Earth class as well. There was no guarantee that he wouldn't reach Earth class late phase peak one day, and if he did, he'd be able to break through to Sky class in one go. His position in the hidden House Yu would skyrocket. However, if there was only 1 chi gathering pill, even if he found it, they wouldn't give it to him. It would be reserved for the core members of the hidden House Yu, and he wouldn't be able to get it. But Lin Yi didn't want to give it to him, and this made him furious. He was an Earth class. Normal mystic, even mystic late phase peak, would be scared when they saw him. The difference between Earth class and mystic class was like heaven and earth. But Lin Yi wasn't afraid at all. He had that chi bomb killer move, making Elder Yu very wary. He could only be angry in his heart, not daring to argue with Lin Yi too much on the surface. Take yours yourself. If it weren't for the fact that I don't want to kill you, I wouldn't even give you a bottle. Lin Yi took his bottle and left one for Elder Yu. Elder Yu heard Lin Yi's words and his heart was about to explode, but there was nothing he could do. The more Lin Yi threatened to kill him, the more he didn't dare to anger Lin Yi, especially now that his body was full of injuries. His right hand was injured, his feet were injured, and most importantly, his crotch was injured. With so many injuries, he still had to fight with Lin Yi head-on. He had no confidence in winning at all, which was why he was so patient. Elder Yu took the bottle from the drawer and put it into his pocket, gritting his teeth in anger. Then the rest of the pills are all mine. Don't force me to blow you up. Lin Yi said faintly. Elder Yu was choked by Lin Yi's words and after a while he said, I'm injured, I won't stoop to your level. Don't think I'm scared of you. Elder Yu thought, when I recover in a few days, do you think I'll let you be so cocky? I'll just take it from you then. Lin Yi quickly walked to the other drawers and opened all of them, but most of the drawers were empty, only a few had something in them. The drawers with something in them were chi returning pill, injury medicine, painkiller, and life replenishing pill. These 4 were all very common pills. Only the chi returning pill belonged to the level of a pill refiner, but the other things like painkiller, injury medicine, and life replenishing pill, Lin Yi knew the recipe and could make them in batches, and with some modifications the cost would be lower. But the pill wasn't very useful to Lin Yi. He'd heard of the effects of the pill before, that it could recover a certain amount of strength in a short amount of time, but it couldn't be used continuously. It was useless to use it too often. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had the jade space, so the chi returning pill was useless to him. Lin Yi took out all the elixirs from the drawer and gave them all to Xiaoka. Here, take it. For a dumb girl like you who goes on adventures all the time and likes to challenge people, it's a good thing to have more elixirs on you. Ah? He's giving it all to me? Xiaoka froze. These were all good stuff, she couldn't believe it. The male thief was treating her too well, wasn't he? Was he really interested in her? Her skills? A little, at least not as good as the male thief. He was a mystic class master, even stronger than her Shifu. Xiaoka really wanted that. But, challenging people all the time? That didn't seem to be the case. Since when did she challenge people? Ever since entering the tomb she'd been very quiet. Why would she challenge people? Xiaoka was confused. She seemed to have challenged someone once and it was that time when Lin Yi humiliated her, and that was when she stood up to challenge him. But how did the male thief know? He couldn't be Lin Yi, could he? Xiaoka suddenly had a bold thought, but she shook her head immediately. How was that possible? Lin Yi couldn't be a couple, wasn't that a little too ridiculous? Besides, the male thief treated her so well, and Lin Yi treated her so badly, how could they be the same person? That was impossible. Lin Yi was such an evil person, it was an insult to the male thief. Before entering the tomb, the male thief had been protecting Xiaoka, and in the tomb he'd been protecting her everywhere. How could he be the same person as Lin Yi? If Lin Yi heard Xiaoka's thoughts, he'd probably be pissed off, They were the same person and he'd become better by covering his face? What kind of pervert was he? I'll give it all to you, don't come here anymore, it's too dangerous. Lin Yi reminded Xiaoke solemnly that if he didn't come with her this time, what awaited Xiaoke would be the death of a beauty. Xiaoke nodded, remembering the words of the male thief. Yes, it really was too dangerous. Xiaoke felt scared just thinking about it. If it wasn't for the male thief protecting her, she would have died a long time ago. Thinking about how old He used her as cannon fodder, Xiaoke felt very annoyed and angry. This guy was so evil, even worse than Lin Yi. Chapter 1389. Seeing that Lin Yi gave those pills to Xiaoke, Elder Yu gritted his teeth in anger, but he couldn't say anything. With a humph, he left the room ready to go to the next one. Xiaoke happily put away the things Lin Yi gave her and happily followed Lin Yi out of the room, heading to another room not far away. Old He opened the door and Elder Yu walked in first. This was a library with bookshelves all around filled with all sorts of books. Lin Yi walked in and glanced at it. Other than medical books, there were many books on botany, evidently kept for researching herbs. Seeing that it was a study, Elder Yu's face lit up with excitement. The medical notes he was looking for should be here. Old He already got what he wanted, and these rooms were just accompanying someone else. What he wanted to know the most now was how to get out of this tomb. The path from before was definitely not working, climbing out from the pit was not realistic at all. Although it wasn't a long distance in a straight line, it was full of twists and turns, and the walls were terrifyingly slippery. It was impossible to get up without specialized tools. He could only focus on the other exits, but would they be easy to find? He could only place his hopes on Xiaoke and Lin Yi. Out of everyone here, only the two of them were strong and he had some experience as well. Elder Yu was as timid as a mouse and arrogant, so there was no way he could place his hopes on him. Elder Yu's eyes scanned all the bookshelves as soon as he entered, but there were just too many books in the room, so many that it was shocking. Even if there weren't tens of thousands of books, there were at least a few thousand densely packed on the shelves. Elder Yu felt like he was getting dizzy from the sheer number of books. Looking at the medical books, Elder Yu frowned. How long would it take to find them? Come look with me. If we find them, I'll let you make a copy. Elder Yu thought about it and said to Lin Yi, 2 people looking together was better than 1 person. He could only promise some benefits to Lin Yi, otherwise he wouldn't have the motivation. But Elder Yu didn't understand, what did Lin Yi want the medical notes for? He was just a thief, why would he want something like that? There were so many medical books in this room and he didn't want them. Why did he want the medical notes? Wasn't he going against him? Lin Yi wasn't in a rush to look through the bookshelves. Medical notes were different from medical books after all. It was more of a diary, and it usually wrote down what patients were treated today, and what patients were treated tomorrow. It was a personal item and it shouldn't be placed in the library. I don't think so, don't bother looking. Lin Yi said faintly. These are all medical books, and personal belongings like medical notes should be placed together with Zhang Liju's other personal belongings. If I'm not mistaken, it should be in the last stone room. Oh? Then let's go to the last room first. Elder Yu hesitated, but he felt that Lin Yi's words made sense. He nodded and said, yes, Elder Yu. The others didn't have much interest in these ancient books. These medical books were precious and many of them didn't exist in the world anymore, but Lin Yi didn't care about them. Old Lin's library was even bigger than this place and there were more books. Old Lin basically had everything here. Lin Yi was the first to leave the library, so he went to the next door first, and this was the last door in the hallway. At least it was the last door within 100 meters. In front of him there was nothing on both sides of the wall, but the light from the flashlight was limited, so he couldn't see clearly. However, Lin Yi didn't open the door hastily, because Lin Yi was in front of the last door, and the jade sent a faint warning signal. When Lin Yi wanted to open the door, the warning signal got stronger and stronger. And so, Lin Yi didn't make a move and just stood there, waiting for Elder Yu to come. Why aren't you going in? Elder Yu paused. Waiting for you in case someone as petty as you thinks that I'm taking everything for myself. Lin Yi said faintly. Humph, you want to copy the medical notes, so you're trying to please me, right? Elder Yu humphed coldly and said proudly. With that, he pushed the stone door open and walked in with big steps. But when Elder Yu walked in, what followed was a cry of pain. My eyes! My eyes, it's poison in the stone room. Old He, who was standing at the door and wanted to go in, shivered. This tomb was really dangerous. There was no danger before and he thought that everything would be fine, but now there was danger again. Even Elder Yu was injured? Male thief, you little brat, you want to trick me? Let me be the cannon fodder first. Elder Yu roared and rushed out of the stone room. His eyes were wide open, but his left eye was dull and lifeless. Evidently there was something wrong with it. Only his right eye was normal. Lin Yi, who was standing at the door, had a cold smile on his face. "You're the one who's being tricked." But what made Lin Yi feel regretful was that Elder Yu only lost one eye, not both. This was a bit of a waste. It was painful for Elder Yu, but it wouldn't affect their strength much in a fight. "I tricked you? Are you kidding me? You went in yourself, how am I tricking you? Don't tell me I'm the one who created this tomb?" Lin Yi humphed coldly. "I've reminded everyone before, there should be danger in here. Who can you blame for being careless?" Elder Yu was a bit pissed. Yeah, who could he blame for being careless? Lin Yi did say that there should be danger in the main tomb, but the treasure rooms didn't seem to be dangerous at all, so Elder Yu lowered his guard. "Elder Yu, your eyes." "Inside?" Old Hay asked, concerned. "There's poison in here. If I didn't react fast enough, my eyes would have been ruined." Elder Yu said furiously. "Serves you right, every time you enter the stone room, you're always trying to get in first as if you're afraid people will steal your stuff." Lin Yi said mockingly, "Are you going in or not?" Chapter 1390. At first, Elder Yu didn't dare to go in, but after seeing Lin Yi walk in without any problems he followed. What pissed him off was that not only did he lose his bloodline, but he also lost an eye. It was a huge loss. The wounds on his arms and legs were easy to recover from, but his testicles were pierced, and his eye was blinded by poison. It wasn't that easy to recover from. There was nothing special about this stone room, and it looked like a bedroom. There was a bed, a table, a small cabinet, and some simple living utensils. It was just like the place the owner lived in when he was alive. If Lin Yi's guess was right, these rooms and this stone room were all remodeled based on Zhang Liju's lifetime. The things and furniture were the same as before. Zhang Liju had no children, no disciple, and he lived his life alone. But since there were countless people who were indebted to him, naturally, there would be people who would pay to build this tomb for him. On the wall of the room there was a line of words: "Medicine can cure the poison, but no medicine can cure the gentleman on the roof." Lin Yi looked at the words on the wall. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. Perhaps this was Zhang Liju's warning to tomb robbers. Or perhaps this little trap had always existed in Zhang Liju's house, and if it was an old friend who came to visit, naturally it would be his best friend who knew how to cure the poison, but the gentleman on the roof could only change his profession. Elder Yu looked at the words on the wall. He was shaking with anger, but the owner of the tomb had died a long time ago, and he couldn't do anything about it. How could he do that to a dead man? Lin Yi looked around the room, and his eyes landed on the small box on the bedside. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. This Zhang Liju was really on par with the old man at home. There was also a small wooden box on the old man's bed. Inside it were some miscellaneous items such as paper, pen, glasses, and some other commonly used items. Of course, the old man also had a medical notebook which was placed in this box. Therefore Lin Yi didn't say anything and went straight to the bed. He took the box and opened it. Sure enough, there were 2 books and some commonly used small things in it. Ancient brushes, ink, paper, and inkstones weren't as simple as modern ones. It wasn't easy to put them in the box, so there weren't any. There were 2 books in the box, one thick and the other thin. The thick one was his medical notes. An excited look appeared on Lin Yi's face. He had finally found it. There should be news about the fire spirit's fruit in the medical notes. Their goal this time was Zhang Liju's medical notes, and now that they had found it, how could Lin Yi not be excited? Xiao, there was finally hope. Lin Yi couldn't help but want to jump up and shout, "Long live the old man." Even someone as patient as Lin Yi couldn't help but tremble with excitement. But, in order not to reveal too much of his emotions, he held it in for now. The thin one on the other hand made Lin Yi pause. Notes of a refiner? What was this? At that moment, Elder Yu saw the 2 books in Lin Yi's hands, and he reached out to grab them. Elder Yu was an earth class, but Lin Yi's reaction speed was faster than his, and Lin Yi had been paying attention to Elder Yu's movements. This was an extremely important book to him. How could he let Elder Yu take it away? What? You want to take it? I'll make a copy and give it to you naturally, Lin Yi said faintly. What's the other one in your hands? Let me see. Elder Yu, on the other hand, didn't care about the medical notes anymore. His attention was on the notes that Lin Yi was injured in. The medical notes were just something that Elder Yu could do without. House Yu only hoped to find something related to alchemy from it, but with the refiner's notes, the medical notes weren't that important anymore. As for the medical stuff, Elder Yu and House Yu didn't really care about it. It's some refiner's notes, it's not something you want. What are you looking at? Lin Yi didn't have the intention to give the notes to Elder Yu at all. In fact, Lin Yi was shocked when he saw the book. Elder Yu had explained so much about the strengths and advantages of a refiner, and Linny was drooling over it. Now that he saw this notes, how could Linny not take it for himself? If Linny didn't take it for himself, he'd be an idiot. Elder Yu wanted to leave, but that was impossible. One was robbing, two was robbing. At most, he'd just fight them head-on. Hiss. Elder Yu took in a cold breath. He didn't think that it really was the refiner's notes. Elder Yu's plan was simple. After entering the tomb, he would use the chi-gathering pill and the medical notes as a cover to confuse these people, then secretly find the notes and put it in his pocket. Elder Yu thought that it wouldn't be a problem for an Earth class like him, but after entering the tomb, he realized that the danger level was beyond his imagination. He felt like he was being led by the nose by Lin Yi. These things were all found by Lin Yi. It was too difficult for him to find them himself. Elder Yu underestimated the traps in the tomb, overestimating the power that an Earth class like him could unleash in the tomb. This made him regret it. If he knew this would happen, he would have told Lin Yi everything when he asked. He was still hiding it, but now he found it and didn't want to give it to him. He couldn't do anything about it. Who asked him to not ask for it? Elder Yu resisted the urge to rush over and snatch it. This was the tomb. Fighting Lin Yi wouldn't do him any good. If he wanted to leave the tomb smoothly, he might need Lin Yi's help. If he injured or killed Lin Yi, he wouldn't be able to leave. Secondly, Elder Yu's injuries weren't healed yet. If he attacked now, he might not be able to kill Lin Yi. Instead, he might get killed by Lin Yi. That wouldn't be worth it. And so, Elder Yu held back his anger and looked at Lin Yi. Kid, how about I make a deal with you? What deal? Lin Yi paused. He didn't know what kind of stupid idea Elder Yu was going to come up with. That medical notes, I don't want it anymore, you can have it. But this personal notes you have, how about you give it to me? Elder Yu said. Just take it as an exchange for my medical notes. Chapter 1391. Elder Yu, can you not say such stupid things? What use do I have for medical notes? I'll just copy it, it's the same, there's no difference. As for the notes, you didn't say you wanted it, why should I give it to you? Lin Yi looked at Elder Yu with disdain. Male thief, don't force me. Elder Yu gritted his teeth as he looked at Lin Yi. What did I force you to do? I asked you before, you came here to rob the tomb for these two things, I can give them to you, are you going back on your word? Lin Yi mimicked Elder Yu's tone. Senior, don't force me. You dash. Elder Yu's mouth was wide open as he stared at Lin Yi, but he didn't have any temper. Me what? Lin Yi looked at Elder Yu faintly. I'll keep this medical notes with me first, I'll give it to you when we get out in case you run away after taking it and don't give it to me. Do what you want. Elder Yu took a deep breath, suppressing the anger in his heart. He decided not to bother with Lin Yi for now. After he recovered and left the tomb, he'd kill Lin Yi and take all the good stuff from Lin Yi. Thinking about it, he'd take the risk of getting heavily injured by Lin Yi's explosion and take the chi-gathering pill, medical notes and personal notes from Lin Yi. Even if he'd be heavily injured, Lin Yi would be heavily injured or even dead. He'd still be able to take all the pills and go back to House Yu to recover. His contribution and rewards would be limitless. From Elder Yu's point of view, as long as he could get one chi-gathering pill, the medical notes and the personal notes to the hidden House Yu, it would be a huge contribution. If he could find even one of them, it would be a worthwhile trip, let alone all three. And if he secretly kept one chi-gathering pill and some other pills, House Yu wouldn't know, when he broke through to Sky Class, all the humiliation he received today would be nothing. With that thought, Elder Yu made up his mind. Male thief, you only took these things? Old Hay looked at Lin Yi, confused. He didn't understand why Lin Yi and Elder Yu were at loggerheads. There were so many good things in this tomb, why would Lin Yi want those medical notes and personal notes? He had never heard of the couple needing these things in the past. However, this wasn't something that Lao He could handle. Ever since he knew that Lin Yi was a mystic class master, Lao He didn't dare to act rashly. I'm not interested in other things for the time being. Lin Yi said faintly, don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Mind your own business. Old Black was stunned for a moment, then he nodded and laughed bitterly in his heart. What a cheap mouth of mine, what nonsense did I ask? It was obvious that Lin Yi didn't want to say any more. These things didn't have much to do with him anymore. Being able to keep his life was Old Hay's greatest fortune. He thought about Old Keng, Old Hao and James who came with him, they were all dead. He killed two of them and one of them was eaten by a monster. After this mission, Old Hay probably wouldn't be able to stay in the business anymore. Killing Old Hao was one thing since he was a traitor, but Old Keng's death was too unjust. It would be fine if no one knew about this, but the couple and the Flying Sparrow girl all knew about it, and he couldn't stop them from talking about it. This time, Old Hay had to think about changing professions. If that's the case, then let's find a way out. Xiaoke didn't want to stay in this tomb any longer. The coffin room, are we still going? I don't want to go, there's nothing else to take. It's dangerous, let's just get out of here. Old Hay shook his head. He didn't want to cause any more trouble after all. The things I want are all on the male thief, naturally I won't go looking for death. Elder Yu humphed coldly. One of his eyes was gone and he was depressed. Then let's find an exit, we can't go back to the previous exit. Lin Yi's goal had been achieved, so it didn't matter anymore. In actuality, Lin Yi still wanted to go to the main tomb to take a look. After all, old Lin said that Zhang Liju seemed to have the ability to find treasures and elixirs. This ability might have come from some kind of treasure, but Lin Yi hadn't seen anything like that on the way here. Jiao Lao was very sensitive to treasures, and if there really was something there, Jiao Lao would have warned him, but it didn't seem like that was the case. Where's the exit? Xiaoke smiled bitterly. Right now, we can only follow this path and see what's in front of us. The group nodded, and after leaving the stone room, they continued walking. This time there weren't any doors on the walls. It seemed like there were only 4 stone rooms here, and Zhang Liju's wealth wasn't that rich after all. But it was no wonder, after all, someone like Zhang Liju didn't care about money or fame, or else he wouldn't be alone his whole life without a wife or concubine. If he wanted to enjoy life, he would have had a bunch of them already, and wouldn't have brought these things into the tomb. After about 300 to 400 meters, they reached the end of the passageway. From the looks of it, the underground palace wasn't complicated at all, and all the complicated paths were concentrated at the entrance. What appeared in front of everyone were 2 stone doors. The 2 stone doors were very similar, but they were slightly different. On each stone door there were different patterns carved. In the middle of each stone door, there was something similar to a jigsaw puzzle like the ones in Huarong Dao's games. Where is this? Why are there 2 doors? Elder Yu saw the scene and couldn't help but ask. Elder Yu, I'm afraid this is the legendary life door and death door. Old Hei's face was solemn, but there was a hint of joy in his voice. According to past experience, the life door will allow us to leave the tomb smoothly, and the death door will lead us to the coffin of the deceased, and in the legends, it will be buried with the deceased forever. Then what are we waiting for? I'll go through the life door, I'll go through the death door. Elder Yu said impatiently. Hurry up and open the life door, we're leaving. Elder Yu, this life door and death door. Actually, I don't know which one is the life door and which one is the death door. Old Hei smiled bitterly. You're the one who doesn't know. Naturally, no one would go through the death door in this tomb, but in some simple tombs, there might be treasures in the death door. Chapter 1392. Chapter 1390 Robbery, Part 1. You don't know? What do you mean? Can't we just open them up and see? Elder Yu frowned. Elder Yu, there's no difference between the life door and death door, but the places they lead to are different. One leads to the outside of the tomb, the other to the coffin, one leads to life, one leads to death. If you go the wrong way, you won't be able to come back. Old Hay smiled bitterly. Is that so? Elder Yu paused. Then what are you waiting for? Go solve it. Well, solving it requires research. Old Hay turned to Xiaoke and Lin Yi awkwardly. Male thief, flying sparrow, what do you two think? That was just my side of the story. It's hard to say whether or not this is the life door and death door. This should be the life door and death door. Xiaoke looked at the 2 doors in front of her and sighed. We need to determine which one is the life door and which one is the death door. How do we determine? These 2 doors look the same? Old Hay nodded. I'm guessing that the key lies in the 2 puzzles on the doors. These 2 puzzles are 2 paintings, and the different paintings represent life or death. Xiaoke guessed. So you mean that after we put the puzzles together, we'll know which is the life door and which is the death door? Old Hay asked. In theory, yes, but I think that the mechanism to open the doors is the 2 puzzles as well. I can't guarantee that there won't be any danger when we put the puzzles on top of it. There's no order to the puzzles, Xiaoke said. Xiaoke said, if it's done in a certain order, then if we break the order, it'll bring serious consequences. We might cause unexpected trouble or we might destroy the mechanism forever. That's serious. Old Hay didn't quite agree with Xiaoke's words, but in this tomb, anything could happen. It didn't make sense and it scared him. Perhaps I'm just guessing. Xiaoke said. Then what should we do now? Old Hay frowned as he stared at the 2 doors. First, think of a way to write down these 2 pictures and then put them together on a piece of paper. We'll figure out which one is the life door and which one is the death door and then we'll think of something else. Xiaoke said after a sigh. Alright, let's do that. Old Hay felt that Xiaoke's method was more dependable. Draw the 2 pictures on the paper first and figure out what they meant. That way it would be easier to determine if the door was the life or death door. Elder Yu didn't understand this, so he didn't give any suggestions. After hearing Xiaoka's words, he knew how dangerous this trap was, so he kept his mouth shut. He was an earth class, almost invincible in the outside world, but in this tomb he was so scared that he didn't even dare to breathe and he kept getting injured. It was frustrating, but at the same time he didn't dare rush Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't care about Xiaoka and old He sitting cross-legged. This time he didn't practice, but took out Zhang Liju's medical notes and started flipping through them. Lin Yi wasn't sure if he could beat Elder Yu, or if Elder Yu would have the patience to let him make a copy of the medical notes. There were a few hundred pages and it wasn't something that could be done in a short amount of time. Even making a copy would take some time, and with Elder Yu's impatient personality, Lin Yi had to give it some li. He had to be prepared. He had made up his mind to fight for his life, but if he could find the fruit in the book, what was the point of fighting for it? Seeing that Lin Yi was flipping through Zhang Liju's medical notes, Elder Yu paused. He didn't think that Lin Yi had the ability to understand this medical notes, but he couldn't say anything to Lin Yi either. He just humphed and started healing himself. In Lin Yi's hands was Zhang Liju's medical notes, similar to old Lin's. It mainly recorded the process and methods he used to save people, including prescriptions, medicine making, medicine collection, and so on. There were also some records about the Fushinai needles. Of course, Lin Yi wasn't in the mood to look at these things. He was curious about the Fushinai needles, but he had to look for the fruit first. The medical notes didn't have a table of contents, only dates and numbers, so Lin Yi couldn't search for it. He could only flip through the pages one by one. Lin Yi's eyesight was amazing, and with Xiaoka and old He's weak light, he could read the words on the medical notes. Lingshan and Yuqian couldn't help, so they just sat beside Lin Yi and practiced. General Wei Wu, on the other hand, laid quietly on the side as if everything here had nothing to do with it. Time passed, second by second, and the tomb was silent. Only Xiaoka and old He could be heard occasionally, and they were either surprised or cheering. They were experienced tomb robbers, but they weren't good at puzzles like this. The two of them had already used the paper they brought with them to draw the puzzle pieces on the stone door, and made them into pieces of the same size, planning to restore them. Song's Han, on the other hand, wasn't as peaceful. A Land Rover without a license plate quietly stopped in front of a bank, and if someone looked closely, they would see that the front and back of the Rover had traces of paint patching. If Xiao Xiao were still alive, she would see that the repair marks on the Rover were exactly the same as her own. Not long after, the Land Rover's door quietly opened, and a man in black with a hood walked out. This person's figure was very well proportioned, and he looked very familiar. After he got out of the car, he went straight into the bank without saying a word. Ah! Suddenly, a masked man in black broke into the bank, causing the customers in the bank to be startled and cry out in alarm. However, the masked man in black didn't seem to hear them at all. He ignored the screams of these customers and walked directly to the front of the bank's business counter. He swung his fist and smashed the glass of the counter window. With a loud bang, the thick glass of the bank window was easily broken by this person. With just one jump, the black-clothed masked man jumped into the bank counter. An ear-piercing alarm sounded, but the robber didn't seem to hear it at all. Ah dash! The bank employees who were doing business behind the counter all screamed. Chapter 1393. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. He was alone like a lone hero. He didn't even say a word and just barged in. The masked man in black didn't say a word. He took out a super large woven silk bag from his waist and started to put money into it from under the counter. He was self-reliant, unlike the other robbers who took hostages and asked the teller for help. He didn't say any harsh words either. It was as if he didn't care about the people around him at all, treating them like air. While everyone was stunned, almost in an instant, all the money under the counter went into the masked man's woven silk bag. The next moment, the masked man in black turned around and walked to the safe at the back. The money under the counter was limited, but the safe stored all the cash flow of the bank for a day. But what was surprising was that the masked man in black didn't ask for the safe's password and key. Instead, he just walked straight to the safe. Ka. The black-clothed masked man forcefully pulled the safe's door open. The banknotes inside once again entered the black-clothed masked man's knitted silk bag. If one bag wasn't enough, he took out another one. The way he put the money in was so fast that it was as if he had done it thousands of times. After doing all this, the masked man jumped out of the bank's counter. During this time, he didn't even say a word. Everyone present looked at this uninvited guest in fear. The whole scene happened in just a few minutes. A few of the bank's security guards reacted at this time. A few of them held their batons and looked at the silent lone hero with trepidation. "Don't move. Put down the money in your hands. We've already called the police. The police will be here soon." The security captain also felt a little guilty in his heart. This robber was too strange. He had never heard of such a robbery before. The masked man turned a deaf ear to the security captain's words and walked over. When the security captain saw that the robber wasn't listening, he clenched his teeth and waved his baton. "Everyone stop him together. Stall for time. The police will be here soon." Bang. Before the security captain could finish his words, the black-clothed masked man punched the security captain in the chest, causing him to fly out and hit the wall of the bank, making a loud sound. Looking at the security captain's chest, the black-clothed masked man had smashed his sternum. When he fell from the wall, he was gasping for air. Obviously, he was seriously injured. With the example of the security captain, the other security guards naturally did not dare to act rashly. They were all shocked in their hearts. What kind of person was this? Not only did he smash the glass of the counter and the safe with his bare hands, but he could also send a person flying with a casual punch and shatter his sternum. How could an ordinary person do that? The masked man in black didn't care what these people thought. The next moment he turned around and walked out of the jewelry store. Carrying the woven silk bag, he got on the unlicensed Land Rover parked at the entrance of the jewelry store. After the masked man in black got on the car, the Land Rover started the engine and drove away. All that was left were the alarms blaring in the bank, the terrified bank employees and the customers. The Land Rover didn't escape directly. Instead, after a few rounds in the city, it stopped in front of a jewelry store. And the masked man in black did the same thing. He directly rushed into the jewelry store and began to plunder the gold, silver, jewelry and cash. The masked man's methods were still very violent. He directly smashed the counter, the safe and the cash register. He was completely self-reliant. He didn't need anyone's help and he didn't say a word. And the security guards who rushed up to stop him were also shocked after one of them was sent flying by the masked man in black. Under the extreme helplessness and sadness of the jewelry store owner and the security guards, the masked man in black robbed everything in the jewelry store and left. The Land Rover turned a few more times and arrived at a secluded place. Then another man got out of the car. This man took out a car plate and got on the Land Rover. The car plate number was TT000. The Land Rover didn't go around the city anymore after changing the license plate. Instead, it went straight to the outskirts and after a few turns, it stopped in front of a small farm. On the surface, it looked like a farm, but in reality, Jianghu had bought this place and turned it into another base for him. For someone as rich as Jianghu, buying this place wasn't hard at all. Plus, Jianghu was doing this for the firewolves, so naturally the money he spent on this place would be deducted from his earnings. Master One, everything went smoothly. 01's robbing speed was really fast. I was only thinking of robbing a silver shop, but his speed was completely out of my expectations. He finished it in less than 5 minutes, so I decided to rob a jewelry store on my own. Master One, you won't blame me for being a busybody, will you? The one speaking was the man who had gotten out of the car and changed the license plate. He was called Big Scorpion, a name Jianghu had given him. Little Scorpion was taken in as the scapegoat, and the firewolf sent another scapegoat. Jianghu didn't remember his original name, but he named him Big Scorpion. It wasn't hard for the firewolves to arrange for someone like this. Although it would require quite a bit of money to settle down, it was nothing compared to the benefits that Jianghu could bring to the firewolves. How can I blame you for making a profit? Jianghu laughed. It seems like the professor's experiment was a success. You got quite a bit on your first try. How much did you get this time? This time, we went to a bigger silver shop in the business district. There's a lot of cash flow there and some foreign currency. The jewelry store is a big one as well, so it should be quite a bit. Big Scorpion didn't know how much money they got, but he had already sent someone to count it. Master One, I've already sent someone to count it. I think we'll get the exact numbers soon. Very good. Jianghu nodded. Bring 01 to the professor and let him replenish his energy and hypnotize himself. We'll do it again when this blows over. Yes. Big Scorpion nodded and left. Jianghu, on the other hand, started laughing happily. I'm really a genius. Not only did I earn money from this, but I can also frame Lin Yi with one stone. Ha Lin Yi, you won't be able to defend yourself this time. Chapter 1394. Professor Yin had always been engaged in the research of the human body's potential, and behind the Fire Wolf gang, there was also a large scientific research organization supporting them. Where this organization came from, no one knew, even Professor Yin himself did not know. Only the leader of the Fire Wolf gang knew the details. But this wasn't what Jianghu and the professor cared about. As long as the Firewolves cooperated, their plan would go smoothly. The professor would be able to realize his experiments, and Jianghu would be able to earn money. The black-clothed man called 01 was a test subject that Jianghu and the professor had created. Jianghu had named this test subject 01. This was a code name, the first test subject. But on the other hand, 01 and Lin Yi sounded like one, and so Jianghu had thought that 01 was Lin Yi. In actuality, 01 looked exactly the same as Lin Yi, whether it was his body or his face. He was a carbon copy of Lin Yi. The Firewolves were full of geniuses, and a genius like the professor wasn't much. There were plenty of doctors who were even better than Lin Yi. It was quite easy for them to make Lin Yi look like Lin Yi. Not only did 01 get plastic surgery, but he had also been modified by the professor's genetic modification needles. The explosive power he displayed for a certain period of time was comparable to a golden-class late-phase peak physical practitioner, but he needed to rest for a few days after that. He couldn't use it continuously, and this was something the professor was trying to overcome. Of course, this 01 no longer had his own thoughts. His brain had been modified by the Fire Wolf gang's hypnotist and neurologist, turning him into a walking corpse that could only follow orders. The hypnotist and brain specialist had carved a series of robberies into 01's brain, allowing him to complete the robberies in different environments. The loot would be sorted according to the instructions as well. This way, other than being completely obedient, he wouldn't leak any information about Jianghu. Once he was captured, the police wouldn't be able to get any useful information out of him. He only knew how to rob, and he didn't know how to do anything else. He had already been manipulated and he didn't have any thoughts. Scorpion, on the other hand, was a scapegoat. At the end of the day, this plan was basically foolproof. Even if something were to happen, it wouldn't have anything to do with Jianghu. This time he didn't let 01 show his face because that would be too obvious. It would be too obvious that he was trying to frame Lin Yi. What Jianghu wanted to do was to let the police suspect Lin Yi slowly, and then let 01 accidentally show his face. That way everything would be fine. Plus, Jianghu was a very meticulous man. In order to achieve his goal, he'd even gotten a Land Rover and made it look exactly like Lin Yi's car. He'd even made a fake car plate, all in order to make people realize that Lin Yi was the culprit behind all of this. Of course, when the police locked onto Lin Yi, Jianghu's next step would be to get rid of 01, making Lin Yi disappear from this world. That way Lin Yi wouldn't be able to defend himself. Jianghu believed that even if Lin Yi could get away with it, he'd still lose a layer of skin. Seeing Lin Yi in trouble made Jianghu very happy. He'd always seen Lin Yi as a stumbling block, and now that he had the chance to kill Lin Yi, how could he not be excited? Soon, the number of robberies came out and Scorpion ran over excitedly. "Master Wen, the number is out." "How much?" Jianghu asked. He didn't have much confidence in this. After all, this was his first test. If he wanted to rob in the future, he'd have to scout the place first, and only rob when he had enough cash. The bank's foreign currency, the gold shop's cash, and the jewelry, the total is around 30 million. Scorpion said. "That's a lot." Jianghu paused, not expecting robberies to be this profitable. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Good, very good. There's no need to touch the gold and silver jewelry, just hand it over to the Fire Wolf gang. They have professionals under them who can refine them into other jewelry and sell them off. There won't be any problems. Hand over the new banknotes as well. We will only keep the old banknotes." "Yes." Scorpion nodded and went to work. Jianghu, on the other hand, was very happy. His plan wasn't bad at all. A simple business that didn't cost anything, and he'd done it so well. Mengya, why don't you like me?" Songshan Police Station. Lu Wangli, on the other hand, was sitting in the meeting room with a serious face. Lingshan wasn't here, so he was in charge of the team's work. What he didn't expect was that 2 robberies happened in one day. One was a bank robbery and the other was a jewelry shop robbery. The 2 incidents happened one after the other. From the modus operandi and the surveillance footage obtained from the crime scene, these 2 cases were committed by the same person. The method of committing the crime was exactly the same. It was a very violent and arbitrary method of opening the safe and robbing it. The time of committing the crime was very short. Before the police arrived at the scene, the suspect had already fled quickly. Moreover, the location of the suspect's parking was very artistic. He avoided the surveillance video at the bank's entrance and the camera on the bank's gate control road. He parked the car in a blind spot, making it impossible to determine which car he was driving. But according to the witness, the suspect's car should be a Land Rover, but the witness didn't see the model or the license plate clearly. He didn't know anything about it. Lingshan's absence increased the pressure on Lu Wangli. He was the temporary vice captain and the squadron leader of the first platoon. Without Lingshan, naturally he would be the leader. Looking at the case file, Lu Wangli was really angry. This criminal suspect was a bit too arrogant. He actually dared to commit 2 crimes in a row. This was simply looking down on others. It was really arrogant. Chapter 1395. Only a practitioner would be able to break through the glass of a bank's counter and open a safe with brute force, and that wasn't something an ordinary person could do. It had to be a practitioner at the golden class or higher, and he'd have to discuss it with Yang Huaijuan if that was really the case. Of course, Lin Yi, who was in the tomb, didn't know that he had robbed twice already. Lingshan, on the other hand, didn't know what was going on outside. Everyone was waiting for old He and Xiaoke to finish studying the pictures on the door and the door of death. Lin Yi flipped through Zhang Liju's medical notes seriously. He didn't think much of it at first, but after a few pages he couldn't help but feel amazed. Zhang Liju's medical thoughts, treatment plans, and prescriptions always made Lin Yi's eyes light up. This Zhang Liju really was a skilled man. If he were still alive, his medical skills might not be any weaker than his old man's, perhaps even surpassing his. But while Lin Yi was very interested in the contents of the medical notes, he still focused on finding the news of the fire spirit's fruit. Luckily, Zhang Liju wasn't a person who liked to read words. His notes were all written in the vernacular and he probably wrote it down like a diary for himself. He didn't want to show it to others and it saved Lin Yi a lot of trouble. Otherwise, just thinking about the meaning of the words would take a lot of time. In order to save time, Lin Yi quickly flipped through the pages, searching for anything related to the fire spirit's fruit. Finally, halfway through the notes, Lin Yi found information about the fire spirit's fruit. Lin Yi took a deep breath and started reading attentively. The main point of this chapter was that he met a friend who was poisoned by the cold, and after all the medicine was ineffective, Zhang Liju found out a huge piece of news from one of the books. In the extreme cold of the north, there was a snow mountain, and on top of the snow there was a fire spirit's tree. The fruit on the tree would ripen once every 30 years, and it had the ability to suppress the cold. In the extreme cold of the snow mountain, the trees that could survive naturally had the ability to resist the cold, and it made sense that the fruit on the tree would have this effect. If it were a normal person, perhaps Zhang Liju wouldn't take the risk to go to the extreme cold of the north to find the fruit, but this friend of his was very close to him and he was like a teacher and a friend. This friend was Zhang Liju's elixir refinement teacher, and it could be said that Zhang Liju's elixir refinement skills were taught by this friend. The reason why this person's body was poisoned was because of the process of elixir refinement, and so Zhang Liju didn't waste too much time. He just packed his stuff and went to the extreme north. At the end of the medical notes, it was about the process of going to the extreme north. Lin Yi didn't read it too detailedly. After all, things were different now. In the past, many cities weren't developed, and it was just a piece of barren land. There weren't any trains, cars, or airplanes, and they could only move on foot or on horseback. It was a tough journey, but now it wasn't that difficult anymore. But what made Lin Yi curious was that Zhang Liju mentioned the words, "it" and "me" many times in the medical notes. At first, Lin Yi thought that Zhang Liju had written the wrong word, and that it was referring to his friend who was poisoned, but the words at the end were all "it." Clearly it was an animal. This made Lin Yi puzzled. Who did Zhang Liju go with? And this, "it," looked like an animal, but it seemed to be very intelligent. It could help Zhang Liju find the fire spirit's tree? And Zhang Liju, with its help, found the fire spirit's tree, and successfully plucked the fire spirit's fruit, and went on his way back. In the entire diary, there was no mention of the location of the fire spirit's tree in the snowy mountains. It only said that it helped him find it, but the location of the snowy mountains was marked on the meridian map, and it saved Lin Yi a lot of trouble. With the general location of the fire spirit's fruit, Lin Yi breathed out in relief. As long as he knew the location of the snowy mountains, there was hope that he could find the fruit. It was just a matter of time, but the "it" in the medical notes piqued Lin Yi's interest. What exactly was this "it"? According to old Lin, Zhang Liju had a magical item with him that could help him find treasures and elixirs quickly. Now, it seemed that this was the so-called magical item, but this magical item was clearly a living thing, not an inanimate object. Could it be something similar to General Weiwu? Lin Yi's eyes landed on General Weiwu. Some animals had a very sensitive sense of smell and Lin Yi knew that, but if it really was an animal, then it would have turned into dust along with Zhang Liju after so many years. Lin Yi shook his head. It seemed that the dream of finding this magical item was over, and he could only rely on himself to find the fire spirit's fruit. No. Lin Yi shook his head abruptly. The monster he saw in the tomb was probably a spirit beast guarding the tomb. Didn't that mean that it had been here for thousands of years? If the it mentioned in Zhang Liju's medical notes was also a spirit beast, then there was a high chance that it wasn't dead. From the medical notes, it had a very good relationship with Zhang Liju, and so according to Lin Yi's judgment, it was very likely that it was in the death door, together with Zhang Liju's coffin. With this possibility in mind, Lin Yi couldn't help but look at the two doors not far away, and he fell into deep thought. This spirit beast, from Zhang Liju's records, didn't have any offensive capabilities, but had a very sensitive sense of smell towards treasures. Even so, it was still a very powerful existence, and with Elder Yu's greedy personality, if he knew about it, he would definitely try to rob it. As for Lin Yi, he might have to come back himself. But although Lin Yi had Lu Bujia's information and the jade, he wasn't a tomb raider, so he was naturally at a disadvantage. Lin Yi's eyes landed on Xiaoke. If he could bring Xiaoke along, it would be much easier. Chapter 1396. If Xiaoke really did find a way to open the door, he'd talk about it later. Lin Yi thought about it and continued flipping through the medical notes in his hands. The next page was about the process of giving the fruit to the friend. Lin Yi was just reading the process and method, but when his eyes landed on a line of words, he was shocked. Lin Yi's eyes landed on the last line. The fire spirit's fruit that was stored in the medicine box had already withered, and Li Ju, on the other hand, had given it to his friend as a test, but there was no effect at all. Li Ju was confused, and after looking through a lot of documents, he finally found the reason. The fruit was extremely difficult to preserve. It had the fire element, and after leaving the tree, it would dissipate very easily. It was best to consume it on the spot, otherwise the effect would be greatly reduced or even completely lost. Li Ju, on the other hand, had been on the road for more than half a year. It was normal for the fruit to lose its effect. Zhang Liju could only smile bitterly after reading the record, but his friend's sickness had to be treated. Zhang Liju went through a lot of information and finally found one of the ways to preserve the fruit, which was to use a box made from Wanyankin wood. But Wanyankin wood was something that was hard to come by. Even Zhang Liju had only heard of it and he didn't know how to find it. In the end, Zhang Liju had no choice but to bring his friend along and head to the extreme north again. But the final result was good. After his friend consumed the fire spirit's fruit, he suppressed the cold poison in his body and neutralized it. But because of this, there were some side effects. For example, his body became weak and he could no longer practice alchemy, but Lin Yi didn't care about that. Nothing was more important than saving Xiao Xiao's life. Even if Xiao Xiao's body was weak, Lin Yi would find a way to recover. As long as she was alive, there was hope. There wasn't anything special about consuming the fruit. It was just eating it and there wasn't anything to take note of. It only said that after consuming it, the body would be hot and cold, and Li Ju had to use his own body heat to keep his friend warm. It was at this moment that Lin Yi finally realized that Zhang Liju's friend was a girl. An evil thought popped up in Lin Yi's mind. He memorized the general location of the snow mountain in his mind and started searching for information about it in the medical notes. With a destination in mind, it was much easier to find. Although the process of Li Ju's discovery wasn't in the notes, the description of it would occasionally appear in the notes. With all the information in the notes, Lin Yi finally found the information he was looking for. Its name was Sky Thunder Pig, and its appearance was that of a small pig. In the records, it was called Sky Thunder Pig or Treasure Pig. This was a spirit beast with a very low level, but it could continue to level up. Although it wasn't even a golden rank when it was born, it could gradually level up to golden rank or even mystic rank, or even higher with the help of treasures. The main ability of Skybolt Pig was treasure hunting. It could find all sorts of treasures and elixirs in the vast lands and mountains. It had a very sharp sense for these kinds of things, and Li Ju had relied on Skybolt Pig to find so many elixirs in his life. Looking at these records, Lin Yi felt that this little guy was quite interesting. If it really was in Li Ju's tomb, then Lin Yi would be lucky. 2 days had passed since Lin Yi finished reading the records, and Xiaoke and Old Hei had made substantial progress as well. The two of them had finally restored the 2 paintings to their original state, and it could be considered as a success. Done, it's done. Xiaoke sighed in relief after putting the last piece of paper in place. Elder Yu opened his eyes as well and walked over. Lin Yi put away his medical notes and walked over as well. Lin Yi had pretty much read everything he wanted. Other than the Fushinai needles, Lin Yi knew everything he wanted to know. Did you find out which is the door of life and which is the door of death? Elder Yu asked hurriedly. He had been out for too long, and although he didn't show his face in the common world, he was still afraid that people would notice him. The noble house council wasn't a joke, and Elder Yu was very cautious about it. He wanted to get out as soon as possible and return to the hidden house. I got the general idea. Xiaoke nodded. Of these two paintings, one represents the reincarnation of the soul, and the other represents escaping to the heavens. What do you mean? Elder, you didn't understand these technical terms. It's clear. Reincarnation is for the dead, allowing the soul of the dead to reincarnate smoothly. There are similar paintings in many tombs, and escaping to the sky should be the door of life. It means that we can still get out after coming here, Xiaoke explained simply. I see, so escaping to the sky is the door of life? Which one is it and how do we open it? Elder Yu nodded. It's the one on the left. In theory, as long as the picture on the door is the same as the one on the ground, the mechanism on the door will activate and we'll be able to get out. Xiaoke said. But I don't know what the order of the picture is. I think that the door of life doesn't have an order, but the door of death does. Old He gave his opinion. Oh, what do you mean? Elder Yu asked. Look, on the gate of death, on the painting of soul reincarnation, everyone is doing certain things in an orderly manner. They are following a prescribed order and are doing certain things step by step. Old He pointed at the picture on the ground and said, the other picture, Escape to Heaven, is a picture of a group of people running like a swarm of bees. There's no order to speak of. Yes. In other words, the picture on the death door already hinted that we have to follow the rules and procedures to open the stone door, but the door of life is different. As long as the picture is right, we can open it. Xiaoke nodded and looked at Old He approvingly. This guy wasn't useless after all. He was still useful in critical moments. Chapter 1397. That's what I'm guessing, but I'm not sure if it'll work or not. Old He was hesitated. After all, he wasn't 100% sure. If he was wrong, the consequences would be dire. Then can we get out or not? Elder Yu was panicking. Can't we just try? Now you guys need to put the life gate together. That's. Old He paused and smiled bitterly. Elder Yu, this puzzle has a certain degree of danger. We can't just do it recklessly, or the consequences will be dire. Dire? Elder Yu frowned but didn't get angry. Then what do? We can only test it. But who's going to test it first? Old He didn't say it directly, but he looked at Elder Yu. Elder Yu was the strongest here, and of course these dangerous things should be done by him, but Elder Yu was a coward, so even if Old He thought that way, he didn't dare say it out loud. Elder Yu naturally knew what Old He was thinking, but he didn't seem embarrassed at all. He coughed and looked at Lin Yi. Male thief, you've already gotten so much, how can you not do something? Why don't you give me the notes and I'll go try? Sure, go try it, I'll lend you a copy after we get out, Lin Yi said after some thought. Lin Yi wouldn't give it to Elder Yu. Why would Lin Yi give it away when he already had it? According to what Elder Yu said, there were so many benefits to being a refiner, how could Lin Yi just give it away like that? Plus, Zhang Liju's notes mentioned that being a refiner was a very powerful vocation. Naturally, Lin Yi couldn't give it up. But giving Elder Yu a copy was doable, and if Elder Yu wanted to copy the notes, he'd have to give Lin Yi a copy of Zhang Liju's medical notes. The two were mutually exclusive, and if Elder Yu went back on his word, Lin Yi wouldn't get anything. I'll give it to you, why can't you give it to me? You want me to test it, do you think I'm an idiot? Elder Yu sighed. Young thief, don't play tricks, hurry and go open the door. Why should I give it to you? Lin Yi said faintly, we agreed that you'd give it to me, but I didn't say I had to give it to you. Since you don't want it, I'll give it a try. Elder Yu sneered. Elder Yu said. Lin Yi said, Elder Yu, Elder Yu, Elder Yu, Elder Yu said. Lin Yi walked in front of the two doors and touched the puzzle piece on the life door, intending to move it. After a while, the jade on his chest didn't send out any warning signals. It seemed like it was just as Old He and Xiaoke had analyzed. The life door wasn't dangerous, and the puzzle pieces could be moved randomly as well. As long as the final picture matched with the one to open the door, it'd be fine. Lin Yu, looking Lin Yi moved the life door's jigsaw puzzle a couple of times, and nothing unusual happened. There was no danger. Fu Dash, seeing how easily Lin Yi did it, everyone let out a breath of relief. Elder He was grateful to Lin Yi. In the tomb, if it weren't for Lin Yi, he would have been abandoned a few times. It wasn't easy for him to make it this far. And so, Elder He praised, you're the best, you're brave. Let's do it. Lin Yi didn't say much, turning around and leaving the door. Lin Yi wasn't good at this, and since Xiaoke and Old He did it, he'd leave it to them. Although there was already an example of the pattern on the ground, it was not an easy task to put the same pattern on the stone door. There were a lot of pieces, close to 100 pieces, otherwise Xiaoke and Old He wouldn't have wasted so much time. Hidden House Pai Jiaka and Pai Jishan were discussing something in a secret room. You heard it, that Air Gooden isn't a practitioner, but he used some special technique to increase his strength, and after using his strength he's no different from a normal person? Pai Jiaka asked solemnly. Yes, father. Jishan nodded. Plus, according to my observations, Gooden was weaker than a normal person after using all his strength. He was even injured, lying on the bed, unable to move. Jishan said. This person should be safe now. What do you think? Pai Jiaka nodded. Father, I think that we, House Pai, have lost 3 practitioners to Lin Yi and his followers. We can't just let this go like this, otherwise the other noble houses will think that we're weak. Jishan thought of revenge after knowing that Gooden wasn't a practitioner. Naturally, we can't just let this go, but as for what other people think, what does that have to do with us? Pai Jiaka waved his hand. Jishan, you're still too young and impetuous. You're a good person, but you can't escape the word, impetuous. Don't care about what other people think, so what if they laugh at us? House Pai won't lose anything. Yes, father, you're right. Jishan panicked, quickly admitting his mistake. Father, I've learned my lesson, I was too concerned about my face. Yes. Remember, if a hidden aristocratic family wants to stand tall and not fall, or even take another step forward, they must learn to be thick-skinned and black-hearted. We don't care what others think of us. The key is how we deal with them. Jiaka said, although, like you said, that Air Gooden might just be a normal person without any strength, using a secret art to increase his strength, but he was able to kill Jianghu. This is something we have to take seriously. If we had acted rashly and tried to avenge the 2 Pai masters, it would be our House Pai who died. That's the case now too. We thought that Air Gooden couldn't do it anymore, and what if he got stronger again? And that Lin Yi behind him, who knows where he came from? We can hate people like that, but we can't go and mess with them ourselves. Aren't there some impatient people? Let them take revenge for us. Chapter 1398. That's right, Hidden House Zhao and Common House Yu. Don't they all have grudges with Lin Yi? Let the news out and tell them to find Lin Yi. We don't need to do anything, just watch. Jiaka said. All right, father, I'll go spread the news now. Jishan nodded. As the heir of House Pai, he was quite smart and scheming, but sometimes he was a bit impulsive. It seemed like he needed to get rid of that habit. House Pai had a lot of channels to spread the news, so it didn't take long for all the noble houses that had a grudge against Lin Yi to receive the news, including Zhao Qibing. He was the first to receive the news. Uncle Zhu Yaoang, what do you think of this news? Qibing was scared out of his wits by Gooden, and hadn't recovered from the shock yet. He didn't know if this news was real or fake. That's hard to say, this kind of news can be fake and real at the same time. Without confirming it personally, who would know? Yaoang waved his hand, but I'm not good at analyzing things like this, I'm just saying. I don't think this news is fake, it's 80% true. Uncle Zhu said, this news, although they didn't say where it came from, but it came from House Pai's information channels. Anyone with eyes would know that this was released by House Pai, and if it's fake, then House Pai wouldn't have it easy either. Releasing fake news to deceive people is a big taboo in the hidden houses, and is strictly forbidden by the Arbitration Council. Uncle Zhu was very clear about the inner workings of the hidden houses, so Uncle Zhu pondered for a moment and said, but even if this news is true, it's just a guess. Whether or not Gooden has lost his strength is hard to say, because House Pai's information isn't that accurate. Sihua said, I think House Pai is trying to get someone else to do their dirty work. This news is real, but even they don't believe it, so they're using other houses to test the waters for them. This is a typical scam. Yes, that's right. We can't be the first bird to stand out. We don't have any masters to go against him right now, so let's just ignore him for now. Qibing nodded in agreement. While they were talking, Su Jianong knocked on the door and walked in. Master Bing, an old man, came to our bar. He said he's Uncle Zhu's elder brother. He wants to see Uncle Zhu. What do you think? Uncle Zhu's big brother? Qibing paused. He didn't know why Uncle Zhu had a big brother. Yes, he claimed to be Uncle Zhu's elder brother. Su Jianong nodded and said. At this moment, Uncle Zhu was extremely excited after hearing Su Jianong's words. My big brother? Is it really my big brother? Let him in, Uncle Zhu will know if it's true or not, Qibing ordered Jianong. If this person didn't come with good intentions, there was no point in stopping him. He could still barge in. If he really was Uncle Zhu's big brother, then there was no need for Qibing to stop him. He might as well let him in. Uncle Zhu looked a little excited as he stared at the door. Not long after, Su Jianong came in with an old man. Uncle Zhu was even more excited when he saw him. His face was filled with nostalgia and excitement. Big brother, is that you? Little brother. It's me. It's been so many years I can finally see you. The old man was excited as well. A long time ago I was sent out by the head of the house to carry out a mission. I can't meet you privately, but Big brother misses you. Then now you? Uncle Zhu's face changed when he heard that it was the head of the house who forbade him from meeting his big brother. One had to know that Zhao Qibing was there. If the head of the house didn't allow him to come and he came on his own, the consequences would be severe. Aha, little brother, you don't know, do you? Big brother, just yesterday by chance he understood the secrets of the heavens and broke through to Earth class. I'm in Earth class early phase now. The old man said. The head of the house said that the day I break through to Earth class, I'll be able to return to the house and meet you. But I can't change the person on my mission at the last minute, so I asked the head of the house to come and see you. Otherwise, how would I know that you're here? Uncle Zhu calmed down after hearing his brother's words. Indeed, if he didn't get the news from House Zhao, how would his big brother know? However, while Uncle Zhu was happy for his big brother, he was also a little sad. His strength had dropped a lot and he was probably only golden class now. Little brother, how's your strength now? Did you improve? The old man asked happily. Don't mention it. Uncle Zhu sighed, his face a little gloomy. It's a long story. Let me introduce you, this is Zhao Qibing, young Master Zhao, the son of the young master. I'm working for him now. Greetings, young Master Zhao. The man cupped his fists in greeting when he heard that it was the young master of House Zhao. He'd heard of the bastard Zhao Qibing before, but no matter what, he was still a man of House Zhao, and House Zhao placed a lot of importance on men, unlike girls who were used as tools for marriage. You're too courteous, Boss Zhu. Congratulations, you're in Earth class now. Zhao Qibing was actually very happy. This Boss Zhu was an Earth class, didn't that mean that he had another Earth class by his side? He was Uncle Zhu's brother, so he would definitely take care of Uncle Zhu. Since Uncle Zhu was injured because of Lin Yi, would there be a chance? That's good. Right, little brother, what did you say just now? What happened to your strength? Boss Zhu suddenly remembered that his brother's expression wasn't right. I was heavily injured in a fight earlier and I've just recovered. But my strength dropped a lot, and I'm only at the middle phase of golden class now. Uncle Zhu sighed. Weren't you at the early phase of mystic class? Why? Boss Zhu's expression changed. What happened? Who did this? Tell me, I'll avenge you. It's fine. Lenny did it. You might have heard of this *** bro before. His follower has been in the limelight recently, and he just killed Jianghu. Naturally, Uncle Zhu wouldn't let his big brother take the risk. Lin Yi was despicable and Uncle Zhu hated him to the core, but his follower's strength was still there. He didn't want his big brother to take the risk. Chapter 1399. But he didn't know about Jianghu. He was sent out on a secret mission by the head of the house, so naturally he wasn't that well informed. All the information came from House Zhao, and there were no other channels. At this time, Elder Zhu heard Uncle Zhu say that Lin Yi's follower killed Jianghu. He was shocked. What happened? Elder Zhu didn't hide anything and told Elder Zhu everything, including the news that House Pai had released. Elder Zhu fell into deep thought. This Lin Yi, is he that strong? That's right. This kid isn't simple, but his follower is a little weird. Should I go test him? You can't. Elder Zhu jumped and quickly stopped him. Big bro, what kind of noble house is the hidden House Pai? They're a physical practitioner house, but in terms of overall strength, they're stronger than us hidden House Zhao. They have a sky class, but we don't. Ever since our ancestor went to that place, there's been no news of him, and the head of the house has been stuck at Earth class late phase peak for many years. He's one of the weakest hidden houses. We can't be the ones to stand out. That's right, Elder Zhu, we need to think about this further. Qibing didn't want Elder Zhu to test Lin Yi's follower right now. Didn't they have House Yu? Let them go. It wasn't easy for Qibing to have an Earth class by his side, and he hadn't even had the chance to show off yet. If he got killed by Lin Yi's follower, it'd be a huge loss. Qibing had his own plans. His ultimate goal was to become the head of House Zhao, but from the looks of it he was still too weak. He didn't have any helpers by his side, and he didn't have any advantage against the direct descendants of House Zhao. This was the first reason, and the second reason was that if Zhao Qibing wanted to become the heir, he had to get the approval of the current elder of House Zhao. If the elder didn't agree, even if Zhao Guangyin agreed, it was useless. But the old man had never looked favorably on this bastard. Of course, it was also because Qibing had always been mediocre, not contributing much to House Zhao. If Qibing could make a name for himself in the common world, then it wouldn't be hard for the old man to approve of him and let him enter the core group of House Zhao. But now, Uncle Zhu was completely loyal to Qibing. Qibing was someone who knew how to win people over, and he often gave his men benefits. Qibing believed that as long as he worked hard, and with Uncle Zhu's help, it wouldn't be hard to get Elder Zhu to his side. But, little brother, your strength has been reduced to this state. Big brother Zhu looked at big brother Zhu with pity. Don't worry, Elder Zhu, I've already asked Yao Wang to find the medicine that can heal Uncle Zhu's injuries. Qibing said, starting to win over people's hearts. I heard that there's a pill called the Meridian Opening Pill. It can heal the damaged meridians of a practitioner. As long as you take it, Uncle Zhu's strength will recover. Master Bing, you're the son of the head of the house, that means you're my master. Just call me Elder Zhu from now on, no need to call me Elder Zhu. Elder Zhu nodded to Qibing, pleased. Thank you, Master Bing. I've heard of the Meridian Opening Pill, but it's very rare and precious. It's hard for normal people to get their hands on it. The head of the house might have a few, but he wouldn't give them to normal people like us. Alright, since Elder Zhu says so, then I won't hold back. A name is just a title. I'll call you Elder Zhu, Uncle Zhu and Elder Zhu. Qibing nodded, closing the distance between him and the two brothers. Don't worry, Elder Zhu. If I have the chance, I'll ask Grandpa for this pill to heal Elder Zhu. As long as I make a contribution to the Zhao family here, when Grandpa wants to reward me, I will bring it up immediately. Thank you very much, Master Bing. Elder Zhu was a little touched. It didn't matter if what Qibing said could come true or not. Since he said it, it showed his sincerity. He felt that his follower couldn't lose out by following Master Bing. Thank you, Master Bing. Zhu Lao was touched as well. Although Zhao Qibing said that he was going to find him some treasures to heal his wounds, he never said that he was going to ask the head of the house for the Meridian Opening Pill. If he really could get it, it wouldn't be a problem for Zhu Lao to regain his previous strength. What's there to thank? You got injured because of me, how could I mistreat you? Qibing waved his hand. We'll have our revenge on Lin Yi sooner or later, but it's fine to endure it for now. We'll see how it goes. Everyone nodded in agreement. Elder Zhu didn't stay long after meeting with Elder Zhu. He got up and prepared to leave. He had other missions to do, and he only came to visit Elder Zhu this time. In the tomb, Xiaoke put the last piece of the puzzle in its place, and with a click, the mechanism of the stone door was activated. Along with the sounds of the mechanism operating, the stone door's surroundings also began to tremble slightly. Then, after a few loud rumbling sounds, there was no more movement. Alright, the mechanism should be activated. Xiaoke said after making sure that there were no other sounds behind the door. Old He took a deep breath and pushed the stone door lightly. It opened slowly without any resistance, and in front of them was a long and narrow passageway. It wasn't as wide as the previous passageway, and it didn't have the smooth stone walls either. The walls here were uneven and everything seemed out of place. The workmanship here could only be described as shoddy. Why is this place so broken? Is there a mistake? Elder Yu looked at the scene behind the stone door, confused. There shouldn't be a mistake, this is definitely not the death door, Xiaoke said with certainty. Xiaoke said with certainty, the death door is connected to the coffin, and it's the most important place in the tomb. There's no way it would be built in such a dilapidated way. So this should only be an exit. Since it's an exit, then it has nothing to do with the main tomb. It's understandable that it's built in a rough manner. I see, let's go then. Elder Yu nodded. He couldn't wait anymore, but as he walked, he looked at Lin Yi with a meaningful gaze. Chapter 1400. Even if he hadn't recovered to his peak strength yet, from his point of view, it was still possible for him to injure or cripple Lin Yi. Compared to the value of Lin Yi's items, a little injury was nothing. Lin Yi smiled coldly at Elder Yu's hostile stare. As expected, this old thing couldn't take it anymore and was ready to make a move on him. But Lin Yi, wasn't he thinking the same thing? After seeing the way out, they didn't let Lin Yi go first. They probably thought that this path wasn't dangerous. Old He and Elder Yu took the lead and Lin Yi and the others followed behind. The path was long and narrow and the road was uneven as well. It felt like they were walking in the deep and shallow places. Originally, they thought that they would be able to see the light once they got out of this path. However, after walking for about an hour, they still hadn't reached the end. It was as if the corridor was endless. Moreover, because the corridor wasn't straight but curved, they couldn't see the scene in front of them. After walking for another 2 hours, Elder Yu started to worry. What's going on? We still haven't reached the exit after so long, is this the right path? It should be right? Old He was puzzled as well. They'd spent so much time in the tomb, but the exit and the entrance were obviously different paths. Logically speaking, they should be able to get out easily, so why hadn't they seen the exit after walking for so long? There shouldn't be any danger for now, let's keep going. Lin Yi didn't feel any warning signals from the jade, so his face didn't change at all. He didn't stop walking. Elder Yu heard Lin Yi say that and he calmed down quite a bit. After all, Lin Yi's predictions were all accurate, and thinking back to the time they'd spent in the tomb, even if there weren't any traps, it would still take more than an hour. The group moved quickly, and after walking for almost a day, Lin Yi brought up the idea of resting when it was almost night. He didn't mind, but Xiaoke was too weak. She hadn't even reached golden class and the qi in her body was pitiful. Naturally, her endurance was limited. Lin Yi saw that she was tired, so he suggested that she rest. Why so much trouble? Sleep? You're a mystic, why are you sleeping? Old He didn't mind, but Elder Yu was going crazy after hearing Lin Yi's suggestion. They were almost out, and if they wanted to rest they could just leave. Why rest in here? If you want to leave, leave on your own, you're already at the exit anyway, you don't need anyone else. Lin Yi looked at Elder Yu and said faintly, ignoring him as he sat down cross-legged. Yumph. Elder Yu wanted to leave on his own, but when he remembered that Lin Yi had something he wanted, he couldn't just leave yet. He humphed coldly and stopped, finding a place to sit down. In his mind he was thinking if he should make things difficult for Lin Yi tonight. They didn't know how long this exit was, and Lin Yi kept walking and stopping. When would it end? Elder Yu could tell that Lin Yi wasn't taking care of Old He but Xiaoke. Elder Yu was pissed. What a pervert, protecting a pretty girl as soon as he saw one. What was this female thief thinking, not caring at all? Lao He also let out a sigh of relief. He quickly found a place to lie down, not daring to waste any time. He had to rest as fast as he could. His stamina was the weakest here. To put it bluntly, he was worse than a dog. Looking at the lively General Wei Wu, Old He felt sorrowful. Wasn't he too weak? Xiaoke, on the other hand, used the time to rest. After a few bites of the compressed biscuits she brought with her, she fell asleep. Ling Shan and Yu Tian, on the other hand, were practicing at the side, as was Elder Yu. Only Lin Yi, on the other hand, took out his torchlight and started reading the medical notes, looking at the Fuxi needles. Acupuncture was a very magical science, but with the passage of time, a lot of important information on acupuncture had been lost. The Fuxi needles had also become a legendary existence. What surprised Lin Yi was that this set of Fuxi needles was a gift from a friend of Zhang Liju's, not something he got by chance. But after Zhang Liju's research, he could confirm that this set of Fuxi needles was the legendary set of needles that could revive the dead. But even so, Zhang Liju couldn't use it. The material used to make the Fuxi needles was very special, but even so, Zhang Liju didn't find anything special about it. When he used it for acupuncture, it was the same as regular needles. There wasn't much special effect. After a few tests, Zhang Liju put the needles back into the box. There was nothing special about this legendary set of needles, and Zhang Liju couldn't help but feel disappointed. However, one day Zhang Liju heard of a legend about the Fuxi needles. The Fuxi needles had to be used with a specialized practitioner's arts. Without the practitioner's arts, the Fuxi needles were no different from regular needles. Lin Yi knew that there were some acupuncture techniques that required pure qi to be used, including Lin Yi's current acupuncture technique, which required pure qi to be used. It was the old man's family heirloom, but it didn't require a special practitioner's arts. Normal qi was enough to support it, and the key lay in the acupuncture technique. On the other hand, the essence of the 9 Fuxi needles was clearly placed in the practitioner's arts. He had a treasure in his hands, but it was useless. This made Zhang Liju disappointed, and he could only keep it as a collector's item. This was also the reason why Lin Yi saw the Fuxi needles in the showroom. If it was really a personal item, Zhang Liju would have placed it in the last bedroom, or in the main tomb with him, instead of putting it on the display cabinet like a decoration. From this, one could see that although Zhang Liju valued this set of Fuxi needles, he didn't care about it. If Zhang Liju didn't know how to use it, then Lin Yi definitely wouldn't use it. But keeping it by his side, who knows when it might be useful. This was something Lin Yi knew very well. Chapter 1401. From Zhang Liju's medical notes, Lin Yi learned about the use of the Wanyankan box. This was a box that could preserve the freshness of the herbs, and it could be used to store the fire spirit's fruit. Thinking back, the box also contained herbs, and the herbs hadn't gone bad after so many years. It was all because of the Wanyankan box. But his Wanyankan box was too small, and Lin Yi didn't know how big the fruit was, but from Zhang Liju's description, it shouldn't be that small, since Zhang Liju had to use 2 handkerchiefs to wrap it up and put it in the box. It seemed like the Wanyankan box should be able to store 1 fire spirit's fruit. This way he could only save Xiao Xiao, not Xiao Xiao's mother. It seemed like Lin Yi was going to bring Xiao Xiao along just like Zhang Liju, bringing his friend to the extreme north. But this wasn't a difficult thing for Lin Yi. Xiao Xiao was sealed in the ice coffin, and Lin Yi didn't need Lin Yi to take care of her. Lin Yi was deep in thought when Elder Yu, who wasn't far away, moved. Lin Yi's eyes were on the medical notes, but he was also paying attention to his surroundings. After all, there were all sorts of traps in the tomb, and Lin Yi was worried that some spirit beast would appear in the middle of the night. But instead of a spirit beast, Elder Yu came. Suddenly, Elder Yu channeled his practitioner's arts, pushing his strength to the limit, Earth class early phase. Elder Yu took advantage of the time when Lin Yi was reading to attack Lin Yi's chest. He wanted to kill Lin Yi in one hit. As for Lin Yi, Elder Yu had an indescribable fear in his heart. This guy was very strange, making chi bombs that no one could break. It was unstoppable. Even a master like Elder Yu didn't dare fight him head-on. So Elder Yu was hoping for one hit, and if the ambush was successful, he'd be able to kill Lin Yi instantly, and it'd be much easier for Elder Yu. Even if he couldn't kill Lin Yi, he'd at least be able to injure him. But Elder Yu's plan was perfect, and he didn't expect Lin Yi to dodge the attack the moment the palm came. "What are you doing? Robbing them?" Lin Yi smiled coldly at Elder Yu, a cruel smile on his lips. As Lin Yi expected, Elder Yu was getting impatient after getting out of the tomb, wanting to kill him and steal his treasures. What a quick reaction. Elder Yu's face was a little ugly. "So what if you saw through me? I want to kill you, so what? Kid, I've made up my mind. Although you dodged my attack, this day next year will be the anniversary of your death. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being too greedy and taking away the treasures I want." "So you're saying that you can definitely beat me?" Lin Yi looked at Elder Yu with interest, not at all afraid. "You may have a chi bomb as a trump card, but you're still a mystic. If I risk getting injured and kill you, it's possible." Elder Yu said. "This way, although I'll be heavily injured, you'll be dead for sure. That sounds reasonable?" Lin Yi nodded and said faintly. "That's right, kid, if you don't want to die, you'd better hand over the medical notes and the refiner notes as well as that chi-gathering pill, and I'll let you live." Elder Yu looked at Lin Yi and said word by word. Hearing Elder Yu's words, Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. This Elder Yu was too funny, wasn't he? At the end of the day, he still didn't dare to make a move and wanted to scare Lin Yi into giving him what he wanted. If this thing was in someone else's hands, Lin Yi would have gone for it already if he couldn't negotiate with him. Why would he waste so much time talking? But the more it was like this, the more Elder Yu's cowardice was showing. He didn't want to fight Lin Yi because he didn't have the confidence to do so. He didn't want to fight Lin Yi. Not only would he fail to threaten Lin Yi, but he'd also become a joke. "What if I don't?" Lin Yi smiled. "Don't? Then I'll have to risk getting injured and let you die." Elder Yu felt disgusted. This male thief really didn't want to do things the hard way. He wouldn't give up until he saw the coffin. Wouldn't it be better if he just handed the thing over? He didn't have to threaten or bribe him anymore. "All right, I'll make sure you get injured even if I die," Lin Yi said faintly. "Everyone get up. After I beat Elder Yu up, you two go together and kill this old bastard. He still has a chi-gathering pill on him, get it too." Lin Yi had the Jade Space, a super cheat, so he wasn't afraid of Elder Yu. He also had General Wei Wu as a life-saving trump card. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of death, or rather Lin Yi wouldn't die at all. But Elder Yu was different. Lin Yi's energy bomb could definitely blow him up half to death. At this time, Lingshan and Yu Tian, the two mystics, would definitely be able to kill Elder Yu. Any expert would be very weak when they were seriously injured. Being killed by an Earth rank expert wasn't a strange thing. Not to mention that two experts who were only one rank apart were attacking at the same time. Lingshan and Yu Tian had been waiting for Lin Yi's summons. After hearing Lin Yi's words, the two stood up abruptly and channeled their practitioner's arts, revealing their strength as mystic early phase. What? Elder Yu's eyes went wide as he looked at the two mystics. No way? Weren't these two golden class late phase peak masters? How did they become mystic all of a sudden? Elder Yu was shocked, speechless. "You guys, how are you mystic?" "Yes, is there a problem?" Lin Yi smiled faintly. "They were hiding their strength before, can't they?" Lin Yi naturally wouldn't say that he was the one who increased their strength in a short time. That would be too shocking. Lin Yi didn't have full confidence that he could make Elder Yu stay, so it was better to keep this a secret. If people knew about this ability of his, it would bring him a lot of unnecessary trouble. Hiding their strength? Elder Yu's face was very ugly. There was no other reason than that he didn't have absolute confidence anymore. Before, Lingshan and Yu Tian were only golden class, and although they were golden class late phase peak, they were 2 levels lower than Earth class. As far as he was concerned, even if he was heavily injured, these two golden class juniors wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Chapter 1402. The chances of winning were 50-50, depending on how heavily injured the Earth class was, as well as the skills and coordination of the two mystics. But even so, Elder Yu didn't dare gamble. The items belonged to the hidden house Yu, but his life was his. It wasn't worth risking his life for these things. He didn't have the confidence to win in the current situation, and with that, Elder Yu was thinking of retreating. On the other side, Lin Yi had already started to condense the energy bomb, looking at Elder Yu cautiously. Good, very good. Hiding your strength. No wonder you're so fearless. It turns out that you have two mystic class helpers by your side. TSK thief couple, good strength, good tricks, good scheming. Elder Yu said good 3 times, and it was hard to tell if he was praising or mocking. A tomb raiding organization with such strength, it's an eye-opener for me. This combination of yours, even in the common world, you're at the top. Thanks for the compliment, Elder Yu. If we don't get along, then let's fight. Lin Yi said. Between you and me there will be a fight, but... Elder Yu's tone changed suddenly. But not now. Male thief, I'll remember you, we'll meet again. Elder Yu didn't even finish his sentence before he turned and ran, his speed shocking Lin Yi. Lin Yi thought that Elder Yu was going to make a move when he heard the first half of the sentence. But the second half of the sentence, Elder Yu ran away faster than a rabbit, leaving Lin Yi speechless. He ran? Lin Yi looked at the energy bomb in his hand, not sure if he should cry or laugh. Condensed it for nothing? It didn't seem to be of much use anymore? Lingshan and Yuqian looked at each other. No way? Isn't this Earth class a little too cowardly? He's always been a coward, not even as big as I am. On the other side, Xiaoka had woken up a long time ago, but Lin Yi and Elder Yu were at each other's throats, so she didn't dare to say much. Only after Elder Yu left did she dare to speak. That's true. This old thing is more afraid of death than anyone else. Lin Yi nodded. Forget it. Let's not care about him anymore. Lin Yi didn't have absolute confidence that he could make Elder Yu stay, so he wouldn't chase after him. Lin Yi's main goal now was to find a way to save Xiao Xiao, so it was better to avoid trouble. Lingshan and Yuqian were a little disappointed. They'd just broken through to Mystic, and were rubbing their palms in preparation for a test, but their target was nowhere to be seen. He won't come back, right? Lingshan said worriedly as she looked at the exit. I'm afraid he'll turn around and attack us when we're not prepared. Unless his head's pierced. Lin Yi shook his head. He won't come back. Lin Yi had seen through Elder Yu's personality already. He was the type that would bully you to death if he could beat you and run away if he couldn't. It'd be best if he never saw you again. Elder Yu had been as cowardly as a mouse on the way, and Lin Yi had seen that with his own eyes. He probably wouldn't see Elder Yu for a while. Lingshan nodded after hearing Lin Yi's words. Lin Yi was probably right. Elder Yu probably wouldn't come back. Alright, you guys go back to resting. I'll guard this place. Lin Yi sat cross-legged on the ground and continued reading the notebooks. This was good. Lin Yi didn't have to worry about Elder Yu taking it away, and so Lin Yi didn't have to worry too much about memorizing the things in the books. Lin Yi waited for Xiaoka and Old Hei to wake up, but Elder Yu was nowhere to be seen. Evidently, Elder Yu didn't plan on coming back, and this made Lin Yi heave a sigh of relief. Elder Yu was afraid of Lin Yi, but Lin Yi wasn't afraid of Elder Yu either. It was just that Lin Yi was more fearless, and Elder Yu was more afraid of his life. This way Elder Yu's aura was weaker. As the saying goes, the heart is afraid of the hard, and the heart is afraid of the reckless. Elder Yu, on the other hand, was the hard one and Lin Yi was the reckless one. Comparing the two, it was obvious who was better. After eating some biscuits, Lin Yi led the group forward. They didn't see any traces of Elder Yu along the way. Elder Yu was very fast, and if he went at full speed, Lin Yi and the others wouldn't be able to catch up to him. Just like that, they walked for another 2 days. The nights were the same and Lin Yi stood guard. On the 3rd day, Lin Yi suddenly stopped. Lin Yi's sudden stop startled Lingshan, Yuqian, Xiaoka, and Old Hei. What's wrong, male thief? Is there danger ahead? Old Hei's heart had just calmed down a couple of days ago, and Lin Yi's actions almost made him explode. There's the smell of blood and it seems fresh? Lin Yi said after a deep breath. The smell of blood? Lingshan and Yuqian paused and sniffed attentively. They were both sensitive to the smell of blood, and they could smell it as well when Lin Yi said that. There's indeed the smell of blood. It's not far away. It can't be Elder Yu, right? Old Hei said hesitantly. I don't know, but it's possible. With that, Lin Yi started walking forward. He could smell the blood, but the jade on Lin Yi's chest didn't warn him anymore. This meant that there shouldn't be any danger ahead. Seeing that Lin Yi was leaving, the group quickly followed, but they didn't get far before Lin Yi stopped again. "What's wrong?" Lingshan asked. "Look at the ground." Lin Yi pointed the flashlight at the ground not far away. Everyone looked down and saw a pile of swords scattered on the ground not far away. There were faint bloodstains on a few of the swords, and there were also bloodstains on a corner of the ground. Ha! Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. The person who designed this tomb. I really don't know what to say. This was probably the last mechanism, and Elder Yu triggered it. It's simple, but if you don't put your guard up, the consequences will be severe. As expected, the mechanism here is controlled by a very inconspicuous silk thread. Once the thread breaks, the mechanism will activate and the swords will shoot out. Elder Yu probably walked too hastily, and it makes sense that he couldn't see clearly in the darkness. Xiaoke said as she squatted down and found a very thin broken thread. Chapter 1403. Old He had seen everything that happened that night, but he was smart enough not to say anything about it. Lin Yi and his wife had become an unreachable existence in Old He's heart. They weren't even on the same level as small grave robbers like him. There's poison on the sword. Lin Yi picked up a sword and sniffed it. It's a very strong, slow poison. You won't feel anything at first, but as time goes on, the sickness will act up. If you don't find a good doctor to cure you, you'll be crippled even if you don't die. This poison will destroy the nervous system of the body, and you'll end up in a vegetative state. That's strong. Xiaoke jumped, quickly standing up to get away from the swords. This poison isn't contagious, right? I was so close to it, will I be alright? It's fine. Even if you're poisoned, I can cure it. Lin Yi said faintly. This poison was strong, but it wasn't a problem for a medical expert like Lin Yi. Even Yao Wang could cure it, let alone Lin Yi. Oh. Xiaoke nodded, letting out a breath. Let's keep going, I'll be in front. Just be careful. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of anything. Lin Yi was already very careful, and even if there was danger ahead, Lin Yi had the jade to warn him. What they didn't expect was that after walking past the swords, they could see a faint light not far away. As they moved forward, the light became brighter and more dazzling. After walking for a few dozen meters, they made a turn and could easily see the exit in the distance. Just a few hundred meters away was the entrance of the cave. The sun was shining brightly outside, brightening everyone's mood that had been gloomy for the past few days. Great, we're finally out. Xiaoke cheered. Old He let out a breath of relief as well. He'd been through life and death in this tomb raiding, and he almost didn't make it back. After this, Old He probably wouldn't dare rob tombs anymore. Of course, Lingshan wouldn't give him that chance. You guys move yourself, I won't be joining in. Lin Yi said quietly after seeing the exit, letting out a breath of relief. Okay, then take care of yourself. Lingshan understood what Lin Yi was saying. He wanted her and Yu Tian to discuss catching Old He after they got out of the tomb. Lin Yi indeed couldn't participate in this, and he had his own things to do. He was probably in a rush to save Xiao Xiao, so he didn't have time for her. Lin Yi nodded, and the group finally reached the entrance of the cave. It was bright outside, and outside the cave was a small valley, very similar to the small valley they entered the tomb from before. The appearance of the cave was no different from a normal cave, and it wouldn't attract attention. Elder Yu was long gone, and the valley was very quiet. There weren't many plants in this mountain, and even the birds were pitiful. The entire valley was very quiet. Let's search here, I have something to discuss with the flying sparrow. Lin Yi stopped and said to Lingshan. Lingshan paused and looked at Xiaoke, understanding what Lin Yi meant. Lin Yi was going back to protect Xiaoke, and she and Yu Qian were going to reveal their identities to Old He and arrest him. Xiaoke naturally would be arrested as well. Lin Yi was doing this to make Xiaoke a helper, not a grave robber. But Xiaoke really didn't take any relics, so Lingshan gave Lin Yi face. In fact, she knew that even if she didn't give him face, Lin Yi would still protect her. Someone as domineering as Lin Yi wasn't someone she could control. Alright, we'll be going then. Lingshan didn't say much as she and Yu Tian grabbed Old He's body, jumping up from the bottom of the valley to the top. Without a rope, Old He had to rely on Lingshan and Yu Tian if he wanted to get out. After getting up, Old He was a little grateful. He didn't think that the female thief would be this benevolent, bringing him out of the valley after leaving the tomb, not abandoning him. He was very touched. Thank you, female thief, I'll remember this favor. Don't worry, I'll give you guys a share of the loot, whether you want it or not. No need, Lingshan said faintly, this is what we should do. Should do? Old He paused. Old He, this is my ID, you're under arrest. Yu Tian had taken out an ID and showed it to Old He. Lingshan, on the other hand, took out a pair of handcuffs and put them on Old Hay's hands. Old Sable was dumbfounded by the scene in front of him. He didn't know what these two were up to, so he asked in confusion, "Female thief, what are you playing at? If you want my things, I'll give them all to you. I don't want them, just let me live." Ever since he knew that the female thief and her followers were all Mystic Class Masters, Old Hay didn't even have the slightest intention to fight back. Mystic Class Masters were legendary existences. Even if Old Hay fought with his life on the line, it would be suicide. "Old Hay, don't even think about it. I'm the captain of Songshan's police department, Lingshan. I'm not a female thief," Lingshan said as she took off her mask. On the other side, Yutian had taken off his mask as well, using his GPS to get a helicopter. Huh. Blackie was dumbfounded. No way these two weren't grave robbers? Old Hay's heart sank as he looked at the two acting so seriously. This was most likely real. Old Hay could only smile bitterly inside. Even if it was real, he wouldn't dare fight back. Two Mystic Masters could kill him easily, and he didn't want to look for trouble. He could only lower his head and accept his fate. At the bottom of the valley, Xiaoka looked at Lin Yi, confused. She didn't know why Lin Yi asked her to stay. But, thinking back to what the male thief did to her in the tomb, she couldn't help but blush. He wasn't going to ask her to be his mistress, was he? Chapter 1404. But what Xiaoka didn't understand was why the female thief was so lenient towards the male thief. When the male thief wanted to stay alone with her, the female thief didn't say anything. Could it be that the couple was just a title and they were just partners, not a real couple? At that thought, Xiaoka felt that it was very possible. On the way here, she didn't notice that the male thief and the female thief had an intimate relationship, and they didn't seem to communicate much. Do you need something from me? The usually bold female thief Xiaoka was a little shy now. "It's nothing, I'll send you out of the valley and you can go the other way. Don't meet the female thief again or it won't do you any good." Lin Yi didn't notice Xiaoka's expression. Lin Yi was thinking about whether or not he should go back to the tomb. After all, the notes mentioned the Skybolt pig, and Lin Yi was very interested in this little beast. If he wanted to find the fire spirit's fruit, he couldn't leave this little fellow. No matter what, Lin Yi had to go look for it. "Female thief? Does she want to hurt me?" Xiaoka paused. "Nope, but I don't want you two to meet again." Lin Yi didn't want to explain it, at least he didn't want to reveal his identity in front of Xiaoka. Once he did, Lingshan's identity would be revealed as well, and it'd be awkward for him to see Xiaoka again. Plus, this was a secret mission and the fewer people who knew, the better. Oh. Lin Yi's words were a little ambiguous, and Xiaoka misunderstood. She thought that Lin Yi was really interested in her, and he was afraid that the female thief would hurt her. Thinking about how she was about to part ways with Lin Yi, Xiaoka felt a little sad. Then, "Will I be able to see you again?" "I don't think so." Lin Yi frowned. He didn't know if he should cry or laugh at the weird feelings in Xiaoka's words. Did Xiaoka really think that he liked her? But Lin Yi didn't lie to her. This was probably the last time he would appear in front of Xiaoka as the male thief. After this mission, Lin Yi wouldn't pretend to be the male thief anymore, and the male thief had been killed by Yutian a long time ago. There wouldn't be a male thief in this world anymore. Oh. Xiaoka was a little disappointed, she felt a little lost. This was the first man she had fallen for. Although she didn't know what he looked like, she didn't know his real name either. Other than that, Xiaoka didn't know anything else about the male thief. She hadn't seen him before, and from what he said, it seemed like they wouldn't meet again. "I'll send you out and I'll go back to the tomb," Lin said. You still want to go back?" Xiaoka froze. "Yeah, I want to go into the death door. Maybe there's something I'm looking for inside." Lin said, "How about I go with you?" Xiaoka blushed. "Although I'm a little clumsy, but I should be able to help." Xiaoka didn't want to leave Lin Yi, even if it was just a little longer. From what Lin Yi said, he didn't seem to have any other feelings for her. So after today they might not meet again. And Xiaoka wouldn't accept any more missions from the thief's door. If she accepted another mission like this one, she would really die without Lin Yi. "Alright, let's go together then." Lin Yi thought about it and nodded. Lin Yi's plan was to have Xiaoka accompany him. Although Lin Yi had the jade, his understanding of the tomb's mechanisms wasn't as good as Xiaoka's. Especially after Xiaoka put the life door and death door together, Lin Yi's idea was even stronger. Xiaoka was happy. Going back to the tomb would mean going to the death door again. It might be dangerous, but she didn't know why, but she felt a sense of security when she was with the male thief. It was as if nothing could hurt her as long as he was there. "Are we going back now?" Xiaoka asked. "Yeah, I'll bring you back." Lin Yi said as he carried Xiaoke and put her under his armpit. He quickly ran back to the cave. Xiaoke didn't think that Lin Yi would carry her and run back. She was a little shy but she didn't struggle. Felt good. Lin Yi was a mystic class master. After using his pure chi he could maintain his fastest speed back to the life door and death door. He didn't need to rest along the way. But Xiaoke was different. She needed to rest from time to time, so Lin Yi took her place. General Weiwu was a mystic class dog as well. It wasn't hard for him to follow behind Lin Yi. And so, the man and dog began to run through the life door, not resting at all. Yu Xiaoke, on the other hand, didn't feel as nervous and worried as she was in the tomb, and she felt very safe, so she took a nap midway. Lin Yi put Xiaoke down when they returned to the life door and death door. So fast? Xiaoke felt that Lin Yi didn't take much time to run back. She was surprised. It doesn't take long for a mystic class master to run at full speed. Elder Yu is even faster. Lin Yi said, "Alright, let's not study this. The puzzle on the ground is the picture on the death door, right? As long as we put the pieces together we can open the death door?" That should be the case, but there's a pattern to the death door's puzzle. Every piece of the puzzle can't be moved randomly, or it'll bring unexpected danger. Xiaoke nodded. "Okay, you guide me," Lin Yi nodded. "Tell me which piece to move and I'll move it." Okay. Xiaoke wanted to say how dangerous it was. But she knew Lin Yi's personality. He did all the dangerous things along the way even when Old Hay and Elder Yu were here. Not to mention when they were alone, Lin Yi protected her all the way. He definitely wouldn't let her move the pieces. Lin Yi walked over and stood in front of the death door. He was ready to move the pieces. "Move this piece to the left first." Xiaoke pointed at a piece on the death door. "This piece?" "Okay." Lin Yi put his hand on the piece. The jade didn't give off any warning signal. Lin Yi was relieved and moved the piece. Chapter 1405. "And then?" Lin Yi asked. "Oh, then try to move this piece down." Xiaoke pointed at another piece. "This one?" Lin Yi placed his hand on the piece Xiaoke was talking about and was about to move it when the jade sent a warning signal. It seemed like if he moved it now, danger would appear. Lin Yi shook his head. "Not this one, it's dangerous." Xiaoke paused. She didn't think that Lin Yi would feel danger without even touching the puzzle pieces. She felt that it was a little strange, but this wasn't the first time Lin Yi had acted like this on the way, so she wasn't surprised anymore. "Then move the top piece and move this one down." "This one?" Lin Yi felt it and there was no danger, so he nodded. "Okay, it works." "This one is fine." Xiaoke paused. She didn't know how Lin Yi knew that moving the puzzle wouldn't bring danger to them. "Ha." Lin Yi smiled as he moved the piece. "This one is safe, which one should we move next?" "Amazing." Xiaoke clicked her tongue, thinking that this male thief was quite skillful, being able to tell if there was danger just by touching something. Xiaoke definitely didn't have this kind of ability. Xiaoke looked at the pieces on the ground. "This one, can I move it?" "Yes," Lin Yi said and moved the piece Xiaoke was pointing at. "What about this one?" Xiaoke asked. "No." Lin Yi shook his head. "Then this one?" Xiaoke asked again. "This one is fine," Lin Yi nodded. 10 hours later, Lin Yi finally placed the last piece of the puzzle in the correct position. He stepped aside and let out a long sigh of relief. "I'm finally done." In actuality, Lin Yi had a golden finger, but he couldn't move the puzzle as he pleased. He had to test every single piece, and that greatly delayed the efficiency of moving the puzzle. As a result, the two of them worked together for more than 10 hours before they were able to complete the puzzle. Compared to the life gate pattern from before, it was almost twice as long. Click. On the death door there was a sound similar to when the life door opened, followed by a loud rumbling sound. The mechanism was completely activated. "It's finally open." Xiaoke breathed in relief. "But there might be danger in here, we need to be prepared." "Stay beside me later, don't do anything rash, I'll be able to sense it immediately, it'll be fine," Lin Yi said. Without Elder Yu by his side, Lin Yi was a lot more casual. And Xiaoke nodded. She didn't know why, but she had an inexplicable sense of trust towards Lin Yi. She felt that as long as Lin Yi was there was nothing to be afraid of. Now, only Lin Yi, Xiaoke, and General Weiwu were left in the tomb, so Lin Yi didn't need to ask anything. He walked over and opened the death door. Even if Lin Yi didn't do it, Xiaoke would do it, so it was safer for Lin Yi to do it. It was completely different from the life door. The path behind the death door was just like the tomb, smooth and spacious, even more luxurious and beautiful than before. The two sides of the path were smooth and flat, but the wall behind the death door was engraved with murals. Lin Yi walked very slowly to prepare for any danger that might come at any time, but the jade on his chest didn't alert Lin Yi, which surprised him. After walking for about a kilometer, it was still very peaceful. There was no movement from the jade pendant, and nothing happened in the passageway. Why is it so quiet? There's no movement at all? Xiaoke asked curiously. How would I know? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Oh right, let me ask you something. Inside the death door, are there any powerful traps? That might not be the case. Xiaoke thought for a while and said, normally that's true, but sometimes there are exceptions. There might be no traps in the death door, and all the traps are concentrated in the place where the death door should be opened. Lin Yi nodded and continued walking. Although he heard Xiaoke's explanation, Lin Yi didn't let his guard down. Suddenly, General Wei Wu, who was in front of Lin Yi, stopped and stood in the middle of the path. What's wrong? Lin Yi was startled, not understanding what General Wei Wu meant. Was there danger? At least, the jade on Lin Yi's chest didn't send out any warning signals. Woof woof, General Wei Wu barked at the darkness in front of them. Lin Yi and Xiaoke were confused, not knowing what General Wei Wu was trying to do. In the darkness far away there was no movement at all. Lin Yi was puzzled, but General Wei Wu called out twice again. This time, there seemed to be a hint of anger in its cries. Woof woof, General Wei Wu barked even louder than before. This time there was finally movement in the darkness. There were 2 weak Jiji sounds, and then a small shadow walked towards General Wei Wu, twisting and wobbling as if it was very scared. What is that? Xiaoke looked at the thing that was walking over and asked curiously. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had the same question, but he was excited for no reason. Was it really that thing? When the little fellow walked closer, Lin Yi's eyes finally froze. His guess was right. From the looks of it, it was that little fellow. This little thing looked a bit like a pig, but it wasn't very similar. Its entire body was round and upright, but it walked on 2 hind legs. Its front paws were like arms hanging on both sides, swaying. It was a bit like a cute version of Zhu Beiji. Looking at the little fellow, it seemed a little wronged, as if General Wei Wu disturbed its dream. It wanted to protest, but it didn't dare to. It could only walk over under General Wei Wu's angry roar. Chapter 1406. One had to know that if a person without any cultivation wanted to rely on eating some treasures to increase the qi in his body and reach the middle phase of the golden class, he would be able to eat the entire wealth of a noble house to the point of going broke. Although Lin Yi didn't know how many treasures this little guy needed to become like this, it was obvious that it wasn't a small amount. It should be Skybolt Pig, Lin Yi said to Xiaoke. I'm here for this little thing. Skybolt Pig? What an interesting name, Xiaoke said. At this moment, General Wei Wu and Skybolt Pig started conversing. Although Lin Yi didn't understand what they were talking about, General Wei Wu definitely understood what Lin Yi meant. It was probably communicating with Skybolt Pig to pass on Lin Yi's message to this little thing. At this moment, Lin Yi understood why the jade didn't warn him when General Wei Wu roared. This little thing wasn't dangerous at all. Therefore, the jade didn't warn him, but General Wei Wu sensed the little thing's message and called it out. It's interesting, but this little guy does look interesting too, Lin Yi said as he looked at the pig on the ground. Since this piglet can walk around freely in the tomb behind the death door, then our previous guess should be correct. There's no danger here. If there's a dangerous trap, it'd be a tragedy if this little thing triggered it, Xiaoke said. What's wrong? Xiaoke asked. That makes sense. Lin Yi nodded and looked at General Wei Wu and the little thing chattering. He couldn't help but ask, oh wait, what do you think? Does this little thing want to go with us? To find the fire spirit's fruit? General Wei Wu turned around and shook its head at Lin Yi. It raised its 2 front paws and moved as if it was helpless. Then it gestured for Lin Yi to calm down, telling him not to worry and to leave it to it. Alright, I'll leave it to you then. Lin Yi nodded. Luckily General Wei Wu was smart enough to communicate with this little thing. If not, even if Lin Yi forcefully took this pig away, it wouldn't listen to him. If it didn't help him find the fire spirit's fruit, Lin Yi couldn't do anything about it. Plus, this little thing would disappear without a trace. Where would Lin Yi find it? Therefore, it was better to let General Wei Wu do its job and let it go with him. This would save him a lot of trouble. However, it could be seen that even though the little fellow's rank was lower than General Wei Wu and he was afraid of General Wei Wu, he seemed to be very stubborn. He kept chattering with General Wei Wu and had no intention of leaving with Lin Yi. This dog can understand you? Xiaoke felt that the male thief was a little unbelievable. He had a high-class spirit beast with him, one that had high intelligence and could understand human language. It was too strange. Can understand, that's amazing. Lin Yi said, let's sit down and wait for a while. It seems like General Wei Wu won't be able to finish the little fellow's job in a short amount of time. Let's take a break first. Okay. Xiaoka listened to Lin Yi. She felt that staying here alone with Lin Yi for a while would be a beautiful memory in her life. She didn't know if she would be able to see Lin Yi again. Thinking about this, Xiaoka felt a little melancholy. This was the first time she fell for a guy, but it ended in silence. After some hesitation, Xiaoka said, "Let's talk." "Talk about what?" Lin Yi asked. "Tell me about yourself. Are you and the female thief husband and wife?" Xiaoka asked. No. Lin Yi didn't expect Xiaoka to ask this, but he didn't lie to her and told her the truth. "You're not? If you're not husband and wife, then why are you called the couple thieves?" Xiaoka heard Lin Yi's answer and her heart skipped a beat. Old Hei's group is called Red Pagoda. Do you think he looks like a pagoda? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "I have another girlfriend. This time I'm here to find medicine for her." "You have a girlfriend?" Xiaoka was a little happy when she heard that the female thief and Lin Yi weren't husband and wife, but when she heard that Lin Yi already had a girlfriend she was a little disappointed. "Is it that fire spirit's fruit you were talking about?" "Yeah, I need this little fellow to help me find it." Lin Yi pointed at Skybolt Pig. "I see. No wonder you risked coming back to the tomb. You treat your girlfriend so well." Xiaoka said enviously. She was thinking how good would it be if Lin Yi treated her this well. This is her only hope. She can only live if she finds the fruit or else. Lin Yi stopped here. "Alright, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's rest for a while." "Oh." Xiaoka nodded. Zhao Fafa finally got his distant cousin Zhao Qibing's address from his father. He had met Zhao Qibing before, but it was only on the dining table. Zhao Qibing said that he would take care of him, but Zhao Fafa never contacted him after that. This time, Zhao Fafa couldn't take it anymore. He asked his follower son Xiaoxing to scare Lin Yi, but not only did he fail, he was bullied by Lin Yi. How could he accept this? Zhao Fafa's ego had been inflated to the limit recently. How could he take this lying down after being bullied like this? In Zhao Fafa's eyes, there was nothing in Songshan that he couldn't deal with. As the new head of Songshan's 4 young masters, Zhao Fafa felt that he had to get back at Lin Yi. He wanted to teach him a lesson and make him give Tang Yun to him. So, after getting Zhao Qibing's contact, Zhao Fafa rushed to the floating cloud bar immediately. Qibing had been quite happy these past few days. There was no other reason than that he had an Earth class helping him out of nowhere. It was like adding wings to a tiger. Boss Zhu didn't explicitly say that he'd support him, but it seemed like it wasn't far from the truth. He believed that in time, Boss Zhu would be under his wing and become one of his generals. "Master Bing, there's a kid driving a Ferrari outside. He claims to be your cousin and wants to see you. What do you think?" Su Jianong walked in and asked. Chapter 1407. Master Bing, could it be that Zhao Fafa? Zhao Guangxi's son? Sihua had a good memory, and he'd been working with Guangxi's construction team to develop the slums recently. That was why Sihua thought of this person. Him? Call him in then. Qibing thought of this person after hearing Sihua's words. He nodded and asked Su Jianong to call him in. Su Jianong replied and left the room. After a while he came back with Zhao Fafa. Zhao Qibing saw that it was indeed him and nodded. "Zhao Fafa, why are you here?" "Cousin bro, I was bullied. I'm here to ask for your help." Zhao Fafa didn't say much and went straight to the point. "You were bullied? Bullied by someone?" Qibing frowned. "What happened?" "It's like this, my dad is working with you now, cousin bro, right? I've earned a lot of money recently, so I bought a villa for myself. In the district I saw a girl and I wanted to hook up with her, but her boyfriend saw us, so..." Zhao Fafa told Zhao Qibing about his conflict with Lin Yi, but he didn't mention Lin Yi and Tang Yun's names. To him, they were nobodies and Zhao Qibing wouldn't know them even if he told him, so he didn't say anything. "What's the kid's background?" Qibing listened to Zhao Fafa's story and felt that this kid was too much of a trash. He couldn't even handle a girl, and now he was asking for help? He was too weak. If it weren't for the cooperation between Zhao Guangxi and House Zhao, Qibing wouldn't even bother with this relative who popped out of nowhere. He doesn't have any background, I think. He's a rich second generation and he usually drives a Bentley. He's definitely not as good as you, cousin bro. Zhao Fafa said. "Oh, but you said that the kid knows Kung Fu and your gangsters aren't his match. Normal people won't be able to help you. If you want to teach him a lesson you need practitioners," Qibing said. "But isn't it a bit overkill to send practitioners for such a small matter?" "Not really. Cousin brother, this is also the time for us House Zhao to be famous. I told him your name before, but he said that he didn't know you, he had never heard of you before." Zhao Fafa started to exaggerate. Look, how infuriating. What the hell was that? I can't believe I didn't know your name. I'm from a hidden house, so I need to keep a low profile. It's normal that no one knows my name. Plus, the people who know me are all famous people in Songshan City. Those Tom, Dick, and Harry wouldn't know me. Although Qibing said that, he was still a little pissed. These 2 days, Boss Zhu's friendliness had boosted Qibing's confidence, and now that someone was looking down on him, naturally, he wouldn't feel good. If that's the case, why don't we let Uncle Zhu go with you? Uncle Zhu, you've just recovered from your injury, why don't you go and stretch your body? No problem. We'll do as Master Bing says. I'll go out for a bit, Uncle Zhu said. In fact, he was a little bored during this period of time. He also wanted to go out and exercise his muscles. However, teaching a young master who knew a little martial arts a lesson was a little overkill. Thank you, cousin brother. Zhao Fafa had learned some secrets about the noble houses from his father recently. There were practitioners in the noble houses, and the lowest-level golden-class practitioner could fly on roofs and run on walls, crushing boulders with their fists. This was a very powerful existence. This Uncle Zhu was obviously a practitioner. Although Zhao Fafa didn't know his level, he thought that Lin Yi was dead for sure. Going against a practitioner was like eating arsenic. You don't have to thank me. Since you said that you're from House Zhao, you just have to work hard for me in the future. We can talk about anything. Zhao Qibing waved his hand. Alright, Uncle Zhu used to be a mystic class practitioner, but because of his injuries he lost some of his strength. But he's still a golden class master. Dealing with a kid who knows martial arts is a piece of cake. That's amazing. Thank you, cousin brother, thank you, Uncle Zhu. Zhao Fafa was overjoyed. After leaving the floating cloud bar, Zhao Fafa felt great. He had a golden class master by his side, why would he be afraid of Lin Yi? He didn't stop and drove Uncle Zhu directly to the district he lived in. Zhao Fafa knew Tang Yun's address very well, so he brought Uncle Zhu directly to her house. Tang Yun had just returned home from school when someone knocked on her door. Mrs. Tang was puzzled, who would come at this hour? Although they had gotten to know a lot of people in this area, they weren't close enough to visit each other. Only Xiaofen's family could visit, but Xiaofen's family knew that Tang Yun had to study at night, so they wouldn't knock on her door at this hour. Who is it? Mrs. Tang asked. The property management checking the water meter. Zhao Fafa knew that Mrs. Tang wouldn't open the door if he said that he was here for revenge, so he pretended to be a property management employee. Mrs. Tang wasn't on guard. After all, the security in this area was quite good, and anyone who wasn't a resident would be checked by the security guards. And so, Mrs. Tang opened the door, and Zhao Fafa barged in without any hesitation. What do you want? Mrs. Tang jumped as she looked at Zhao Fafa. He didn't look like someone from the property management company at all. Uncle Zhu, on the other hand, looked like a door god's bodyguard, standing beside Zhao Fafa with a cold face. Where's your daughter? Zhao Fafa looked at Mrs. Tang. You're looking for Yin? Mrs. Tang didn't know who Zhao Fafa was, so she was a little scared. Why are you looking for her? Ask her to come out. Zhao Fafa was confident with Uncle Zhu by his side. He humphed. Hurry up or don't blame me for tearing down your house. Tang Yun heard the quarrel in the living room and quickly walked out. She frowned when she saw Zhao Fafa making a scene in the house. It's you? Tang Yun, where's your boyfriend? Find him and bring him here to die quickly. Motherfucker, how dare he humiliate me last time. I'll teach him a lesson this time. Zhao Fafa saw that Tang Yun was here, but he wasn't in a rush to flirt with her. His main purpose was to teach Lin Yi a lesson. As long as he made Lin Yi submit, getting Tang Yun would be a piece of cake. Chapter 1408. He's not coming? Then don't blame me for being impolite. If he doesn't come, I'll take you away by force. Zhao Fafa laughed coldly. Tang Yun, since your boyfriend doesn't want you anymore, you can follow me. Is there something wrong with you? Tang Yun didn't expect Zhao Fafa to be so shameless, but Lin Yi wasn't home. Tang Yun couldn't call Lin Yi and disturb him. He was doing something important, how could she disturb him? Little girl, this old man advises you to do as he says and get your boyfriend here. Otherwise don't blame me for being impolite. With that, Uncle Zhu swung his hand at the coffee table in Tang Yin's living room. With a loud bang, Uncle Zhu smashed the coffee table into smithereens, scaring Mrs. Tang to the point where her face turned ashen. Uncle Zhu didn't know who Tang Yun was. He didn't know that she was Lin Yi's girlfriend. Although Lin Yi injured him because of Tang Yun, Uncle Zhu had never seen her face before. The name Tang Yun sounded familiar, but he couldn't remember where he heard it. Yun, hurry up and call Lin Yi. Tell him to come here as soon as possible. If he doesn't come, the house will be torn apart. Mrs. Tang was scared. She lowered her voice and said to Tang Yun, "Only Lin can deal with these people. Hurry up and find him." I'll try." Tang Yun didn't have a choice. She didn't expect the people around Zhao Fafa to be so fierce. According to Tang Yun's experience, this person should be a practitioner. A normal person wouldn't be able to deal with him. Tang Yun walked into her room quickly. She didn't plan to call Lin Yi. Instead, she called House Chu's villa. Meng Yao was the one who picked up the phone. Tang Yun told her about her problem and Meng Yao passed the phone to Air Gooden. Lin Yi wasn't home, so Air Gooden was the only one who could make the call. "Practitioner? How about this? I'll let Wu Qintian have a look. Don't worry, Tang Yun's sis-in-law, I'll tell him now." Gooden wouldn't be able to go by himself. He'd used up all his strength, and the poison in his body was on the verge of exploding. It was hard enough for him to live a normal life, let alone fight people. After hanging up, Gooden went to find Qintian. "Wu Qintian, Tang Yun's sis-in-law is in some trouble. A servant brought a practitioner to cause trouble. Can you go take a look?" "Of course, no problem, leave it to me." Qintian patted his chest. "Boss's business is my business and boss's wife's business is my business as well. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. He's just a practitioner brought by a servant, he's probably not a master, I'll deal with him. Be careful. If you can't handle it, don't force it. When Faubert comes back, I'll send him to help." Gooden said. Faubert went to pick up Chu Pingzhan after sending Meng Yao, Yushu and Tang Yun from school, so he wasn't home now. "Okay boss, just watch me." Qintian finally had a chance to work for Gooden, and naturally he was very enthusiastic. He treated this as a test from Gooden, and so he rushed to Tang Yun's house after receiving the order. Qintian rushed into the house and saw Tang Yun and Mrs. Tang standing anxiously in the living room. On the other side there was an old man and a young master-looking man. Both of them looked like they had everything under control. "Tang Yun's sis-in-law, I'm here." "These two bastards?" Qintian said to Tang Yun as soon as he entered the room. "Are they the fuckers?" "Kid, who are you?" Zhao Fafa froze when he saw that it wasn't Lin Yi but another young man. "Tang Yun, you changed boyfriends? Are you retarded? I've already called her sis-in-law, don't you know who I am?" Qintian laughed and looked at Zhao Fafa as if he was looking at an idiot. "You're that bastard's young master, right? I'll give you a chance now, apologize to Tang Yun's sis-in-law, or the consequences will be severe." Zhao Fafa blushed. He didn't hear Qintian's words clearly and mistook him as Tang Yun's new boyfriend, but he was thick-skinned and didn't say anything. "Who do you think you are? Severe consequences? You're bluffing, right?" Qintian humphed coldly and turned his head. He saw a copper wall lamp in front of Tang Yun's house and he pulled it down. He then casually pinched the base of the lamp and the shape changed. "See, I'll pinch your head and it'll explode." Golden class early phase physical practitioner. Uncle Zhu's face froze. He didn't expect this person to be a practitioner as well. Although he was only early phase, he wasn't simple. There were masters like this in the common world? "Old man, you have good eyesight. Since that's the case, why don't you get the hell out of here?" Qintian said proudly. Tang Yun was speechless. Was this Qintian here to save the day or to destroy the place? Uncle Zhu smashed a coffee table and Qintian pulled down the lamp on the wall. But thinking that Qintian was doing this out of goodwill, Tang Yun couldn't say anything. "Ignorant kid, do you think you're strong because you're an early phase golden class master? You've just stepped into the door of a practitioner, don't overestimate yourself." Uncle Zhu had a mocking look on his face after hearing Qintian's words. "I used to be a mystic early phase peak, but now that I'm injured, my strength has dropped to golden class. But even so, you're still no match for me." "Mystic class? You're a mystic? Are you kidding me?" Qintian laughed after hearing Uncle Zhu's words. "Since that's the case, let me test your strength." With that, Qintian threw a punch at Uncle Zhu. He was an expert in kung fu, and his iron hands were as hard as steel. Even his fist was as hard as steel. Uncle Zhu didn't think that Qintian would attack him without any warning at all. Uncle Zhu didn't finish what he wanted to say. He wanted to test Qintian's background, but before he could ask, Qintian started fighting. Chapter 1409. Uncle Zhu was about to explode. Even if his strength dropped to golden class, he felt that he should still be a golden class mid-phase master. Although it wasn't very stable, he should still be much stronger than Qintian who had just started. Plus, he was a mystic before, so he should be much stronger than this guy in front of him. But it was precisely because he was so much stronger that Uncle Zhu realized that he had failed miserably. That made him even angrier. "You're asking for it, kid." Uncle Zhu channeled his practitioner's arts. preparing to attack Tian. Tian's punch had landed squarely on Uncle Zhu's body, causing him serious internal injuries. It was a great humiliation to him. Tian was startled. He didn't think that the old man in front of him was really a golden class, and he had the strength of a golden class mid-phase at that. He had thought that Uncle Zhu was just a braggart who knew some secrets about practitioners, but he didn't think that Uncle Zhu was actually this strong. Old man, you really are a golden class mid-phase master. Tian was a bit arrogant, but he didn't dare to be careless in the face of such absolute strength. In the path of practitioners, strength was strength and arrogance wasn't something that could be won. So, Tian subconsciously took a step back. Even so, Uncle Zhu was fast, and his fist was already at Tian's chest. Tian saw that he couldn't dodge and his body was already against the wall. He had no choice but to raise his fist and meet Uncle Zhu's fist head-on. Bam! The two collided and a loud sound rang out. Tian's fists were unparalleled, but in front of Uncle Zhu, who was stronger than him, his fist still hurt from the impact. If it weren't for the fact that he practiced hand techniques, his hand would have been crippled by Uncle Zhu. Uncle Zhu was a spiritual practitioner, and he had an advantage over physical practitioners. Even if he was at the same level as Tian, he could still be stronger than Tian, let alone a middle-phase master. Huh. Your hand is actually fine? Uncle Zhu's original plan was to cripple Tian's arm even if he couldn't hit him. Tian had heavily injured him earlier, and his chi and blood were in a mess. He was furious and used all of his strength in this punch, but it didn't do anything to Tian. Hey old thing, you haven't eaten your fill, have you? My hand is naturally fine. Tian wasn't dumb enough to say that his main training was his hands. Wouldn't that be exposing his weakness? It was fine if it was someone weaker than him, but he didn't dare say it to someone stronger than him. Hand over your life. Uncle Zhu's eyes were red from Tian's words, and he used all his chi to attack Tian. He knew that Tian's attack had greatly damaged his strength, and he could have easily taken out this early-phase golden class junior, but he didn't expect that he would get injured. He couldn't use his full strength anymore, and he had to end the battle as soon as possible before his injuries flared up. Tian didn't dare to fight head-on. He turned and ran the moment Uncle Zhu opened his mouth. However, the difference in strength between the two was too big. Uncle Zhu was a golden class master who had fallen from mystic class, and he had more experience and strength than normal golden class masters. How could Tian, who had just started his training, be his opponent? The sneak attack was just a surprise attack, and it was almost impossible for him to hit Uncle Zhu now. Not to mention fighting, even if Tian wanted to run, it wouldn't be that easy. Seeing that Uncle Zhu was catching up, Tian hesitated. If he quickened his pace, he would reach Tang Yun's house soon. He believed that Uncle Zhu wouldn't chase him if he ran out of the house. After all, Zhao Fafa was still in the house and Uncle Zhu wouldn't leave him behind. But if he ran away, what would happen to Tang Yun? This was a mission given to him by his boss and he had to protect Tang Yun. With that thought, Tian gritted his teeth. Since he had recognized her as his boss, running away now would be a huge crime. How would House Wu's reputation go? He was the young master of House Wu, and his every word and action represented House Wu. If he ran away now, he wouldn't have the face to show his face anymore. Especially since Tian was someone who cared about his face, he wouldn't do something like this. And so, Tian stopped running. His fists turned into palms and he stood on the spot, ready to fight head-on with Uncle Zhu. As long as he could stall for time until Faubert arrived, everything would be fine. Faubert was a golden class late phase peak master, and it shouldn't be a problem for him to fight Uncle Zhu. He just needed to hold on for a while. Come on old man, have a taste of Grandpa Wu's Titan palm. Tian said as he raised his palms up high. Die. Uncle Zhu didn't think that Tian would take the initiative to fight, and he was even angrier. This kid didn't respect him at all. Uncle Zhu felt wronged. Before he dropped his level, he only needed one punch to defeat a golden class early phase master like Tian. They weren't on the same level at all. But now, after fighting for so long, there was no result and this kid was laughing at him. Uncle Zhu rushed towards Tian and raised his palms. This time he gathered all his chi into his palms, and his goal was to kill Tian in one hit. Boom! Tian's palms collided with Uncle Zhu's. Even though Tian practiced Iron Fist arts, he was still sent flying by Uncle Zhu's powerful chi, crashing into Tang Yun's house's security door. The door was deformed from the impact. Pfft. Tian spat out a mouthful of blood as he fell from the door. His face was pale and the shirt on his chest was dyed red with blood. Tian's hand was fine and it wasn't damaged by Uncle Zhu, but Qintian's body was heavily injured. His organs were all dislocated, and his meridians were mostly destroyed. But even though Qintian was heavily injured, Uncle Zhu wasn't in a good state either. He was injured by Qintian earlier, and now that their palms met, Qintian's sturdy palms rebounded some of the force back to Uncle Zhu's body, worsening his injuries. Ah! Tang Yun was shocked when she saw Qintian spitting out blood. Are you okay? Chapter 14:10. However, Zhao Fafa realized that Uncle Zhu's face wasn't right, it was a little too red. He was stunned and quickly shut his mouth. Uncle Zhu's face was a little red. Zhao Fafa could tell that Uncle Zhu was injured as well. Kid, you're good. You're just a golden class early phase master, yet you managed to injure me. You even rebounded the force back to me when we clashed. What a surprise. Uncle Zhu smiled coldly. If I'm not wrong, you're Che-so? You're a physical practitioner, aren't you? Qintian said that his surname was Wu, and considering his kung fu, it wasn't hard for Uncle Zhu to guess Qintian's identity. That's right. Since you know who I am, why don't you scram? You injured me, aren't you afraid of House Wu's revenge? Qintian's blood was boiling and his body was in pain. He didn't have the strength to fight Uncle Zhu anymore, so he could only use words to scare Uncle Zhu, hoping that it would buy him some time. Ha 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 ha. Uncle Zhu heard Qintian's words and laughed hysterically. You're just a common world noble house, how dare you talk about revenge in front of me? House Wu, I don't care about you. Since you've pissed me off, you'll have to pay the price. Die. With that, Uncle Zhu prepared to end Qintian's life. Wait. Qintian jumped in fright. He didn't think that his name wouldn't work. This guy wasn't afraid of House Wu's revenge at all, and he still wanted to kill him. Qintian sweated profusely. He didn't want to die. Wasn't this old man too cruel? You wanted to kill someone? Do you have any last words? Uncle Zhu asked faintly. He wasn't in a rush to kill Qintian. As far as he was concerned, Qintian was a dead man. There was no way he could escape from him, so it didn't matter if he killed him now or later. If you kill me, my boss will avenge me. Qintian said, my boss won't let you go. Qintian thought, Faubert, why aren't you here yet? I'm about to die, come save me. Your boss. Uncle Zhu was stunned. Who's your boss? Uncle Zhu, this kid is playing word games with you. His boss is Tang Yun's boyfriend. Zhao Fafa explained and turned to Qintian. Don't worry, after you die, the next one will be Lin Yi. Lin Yi's my boss isn't Lin Yi. Qintian continued to stall for time. Uncle Zhu was stunned when he heard Lin Yi's name. What did you say? Your boss is Lin Yi? Which Lin Yi? Which other Lin Yi could it be? That Air Goodenbro's boss who killed Jianghu with one punch. Air Goodenbro is my boss, so naturally Lin Yi is my boss. Qintian said. If I die, you'll be finished. Your whole family will be finished. My boss and my boss will kill your whole family. Ugh. Uncle Zhu's face darkened. He felt his legs trembling. No way. This kid's boss was Air Gooden? The one who killed Jianghu with one punch? And Air Gooden's boss was Lin Yi? Why was it Lin Yi again? Uncle Zhu wanted to cry. What the fuck, wasn't this a trap? Even Master Bing didn't dare to do anything to Lin Yi, and he was here to help Zhao Fafa and cause trouble for Lin Yi? This girl was Lin Yi's girlfriend? Right. Uncle Zhu's eyes lit up. He finally understood why the name Tang Yun was so familiar. Back then he was beaten into a cripple and Zhao Qibing's legs were broken. Wasn't it because he provoked this Tang Yun? And now he was here again? As long as Qintian wasn't dead, he believed that Lin Yi wouldn't pursue the matter. But he was here to harass Tang Yun again. Someone like Lin Yi was so protective of his own people. Uncle Zhu didn't dare to think about it. What now? Scared now? Qintian wasn't an idiot. He could tell that Uncle Zhu was afraid of Lin Yi and Air Gooden just by looking at his face. He didn't know why, but it was a good thing. It's a misunderstanding. I've offended you before. Uncle Zhu didn't have a choice. He had to make things clear. If Lin Yi came because of this, wouldn't he be causing trouble for Master Bing? Uncle Zhu himself wasn't strong enough, so he couldn't do anything to Lin Yi. He could only lower his head. This time, it was Qintian's turn to be stunned. He didn't think that Air Gooden and Lin Yi's names would be so useful. Uncle Zhu was so scared that it turned into a misunderstanding. But Qintian was puzzled. Didn't he know that Tang Yun was Lin Yi's girlfriend? Why did he look like he didn't know? Since you know that Tang Yun-in-law is Lin Yi's girlfriend, you still dare to come? You're really not afraid of death. Qintian humphed coldly. I didn't know about it before. It was my fault. I'm sorry, I'll leave now. Uncle Zhu didn't dare to stay any longer. He turned around and left. Zhao Fafa was panicking. He didn't understand. Why did they give up on such a good situation? Didn't they want to kill Qintian and let Linny die? How did it turn into a misunderstanding? What was going on? Uncle Zhu, don't go. Why are you leaving? Zhao Fafa was panicking. He quickly chased after Uncle Zhu, but Uncle Zhu didn't even look back. Zhao Fafa had no choice but to follow. If Uncle Zhu wasn't here, he wouldn't be Wu Qintian's opponent. Wouldn't he be beaten to death? Qintian wanted to teach Zhao Fafa a lesson, but he didn't even have the strength to get up from the ground. His body felt like it was broken. Seeing that Uncle Zhu left, he felt relieved. He spat out another mouthful of blood and fainted. Are you okay? Do you need to call the ambulance? Tang Yun saw that Qintian fainted and panicked. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know if other practitioners needed to go to the hospital after they got injured, but Linny didn't. So she didn't know if Qintian should go or not. But Qintian had already fainted. He couldn't answer Tang Yun. Chapter 14:11. He's from our district. He wanted to chase me, but I rejected him, so he came to cause trouble? Tang Yun said simply, let's not talk about this first. I need to call Air Gooden and ask him what should we do with this Wu Qintian? Tang Yun picked up her phone and was about to call Mingyao's house number when Faubert walked in with big steps. Tang Yun, are you there? Are you okay? Did the enemy leave? Faubert. Tang Yun put down the phone when she saw Uncle Fu. Uncle Fu, Wu Qintian's injured by Uncle Zhu. Do you want to send him to the hospital? Uncle Fu's eyes lit up when he saw Uncle Fu. Faubert heard Tang Yun's words and quickly walked over. He bent down and checked Qintian's injury, frowning. It would be great if Lily was here, but he isn't, so we can only send him to the hospital first. I'll drive him there now. Do you want to come with me? Okay. Tang Yun nodded. Wu Qintian was injured because of her. Naturally, she wouldn't just ignore him. Tang Yun quickly changed her shoes and said to her mother, Mom, you stay at home and ask the management to fix the door. I'll go out for a while. Tang Yun wasn't worried that Uncle Zhu and the others would come back. Since they ran away after hearing Lin Yi's name, it was obvious that they wouldn't come back. But what happened today made Tang Yun a little depressed. Zhao Fafa didn't know how strong Lin Yi was, but the helper he invited, Uncle Zhu, was very afraid of Lin Yi. He ran away after hearing Lin Yi's name, as if he was afraid that Lin Yi would come to him. If that was the case, Tang Yun should have told Uncle Zhu about Lin Yi's name earlier. How could she let Qintian get injured? But how would she know that Zhao Fafa didn't tell Uncle Zhu about Lin Yi's name? On the way to the hospital, Tang Yun told Faubert what happened. Faubert nodded and sighed, so it's Uncle Zhu. He's the bodyguard that Lin Yi injured. It was because of the demolition of your house that Lin Yi did it. It's him. No wonder he's so scared of Lin Yi. Tang Yun realized. When I came here before, I saw two people coming out of your unit, got into a Ferrari sports car and left. It turned out to be the two of them. If I knew this, I would have stopped them. Faubert said. There's no need for that. Now that Lin Yi isn't home, it's better to avoid trouble. Let's wait for Lin Yi to come back first? Tang Yun didn't want to cause trouble when Lin Yi wasn't home. Alright, we'll wait for Lin Yi to come back. Faubert nodded. Qintian's injuries were all internal. Qintian was a physical practitioner and his meridians were of little use, but it would still affect his strength a little. Even if his injuries were healed, he wouldn't be able to return to his previous strength. Plus, his organs were all injured, and it wasn't something that could be healed in a short amount of time. According to normal treatment, he'd have to stay in bed for at least a year. However, Qintian's life wasn't in danger at the moment. This made Faubert and Tang Yun let out a sigh of relief. Qintian hadn't woken up yet, but he was out of danger. This way they could just wait for Lin Yi to come back and treat his other injuries. However, the two bodyguards at home were injured. The situation was quite serious. Faubert had to be more careful in protecting Meng Yao and the others. He had to hold on until Lin Yi came back. It had only been 3 days since the bank robbery and the jewelry store robbery in Songshan, and now another shocking robbery had occurred. Another bank was robbed. The modus operandi was the same as before. It was a one-sided robbery with violence. The robber was still alone. After entering the bank, he did not say a word. He directly broke the counter window and jumped in to rob the bank. Then he used violence to destroy the safety deposit box and took away the cash and foreign currency inside. The robbery method was very fast. The whole process was very short. In just a few minutes, the bank was emptied and the robber left the bank in a hurry. By the time the police arrived at the scene, the robber was long gone. This kind of method wasn't common. In the past, robbers always worked in groups. The first thing they did after entering the bank was to take hostages and threaten the bank staff to open the safety deposit box for them. This way they would waste a lot of time and give the police enough time to get to the scene. But this robber's speed was shockingly fast. There was no hesitation at all. Lingshan didn't think that she'd run into such a big case as soon as she got back to the police station. What gave her a headache was that Lu Wangli told her that there were 2 other robberies that happened before, and the method was exactly the same. At first, Lingshan was very happy that she had arrested Old Hay, Old King James, and Old Howe's men around the tomb. This case wasn't perfect, but it was done smoothly. The suspects were all arrested, and this was a great achievement. But Lingshan didn't even get the chance to rejoice when trouble came one after another. 3 robberies in such a short period of time. This drove Lingshan crazy. Just who was this person? How could they be so daring, committing crimes consecutively? Yuqian and Lingshan returned to the police station together. They had planned to discuss the interrogation of the suspects, but now it seemed like they wouldn't be able to discuss it anytime soon. Yuqian sighed as he saw Lingshan's frown. Lingshan, don't give yourself too much pressure. The robberies have already happened, there's no use worrying about it. We can only try our best to find clues. But from the looks of it, this person is definitely a practitioner as well. Yeah, it has to be a practitioner. This makes it harder to solve the case. Lingshan said. Almost all the practitioners in Songshan have records here. I'm afraid we'll have to contact Feng Tianlong for help. This is a bit beyond our capabilities. That's right, if the suspect really is a practitioner, then we'll have to talk to the Secret Investigation Department and get them to send help. Yuqian nodded. Let's talk about the tomb first? Chapter 14:12. But at that moment, a knock came from Lingshan's office door. Come in. Lingshan didn't think much of it, she thought it was her subordinate reporting on the progress of the investigation. But the person who opened the door wasn't one of Lingshan's subordinates, but Yu Feng from House Yu. Lingshan, I heard from the guard downstairs that you're back today, so I bought some good food to celebrate. Congratulations on your successful mission. Yu Feng walked in with a smile on his face. In his hand was a bag filled with all sorts of delicious food. In fact, Yu Feng had been coming to look for Lingshan quite a bit recently, but the guard said that Lingshan wasn't back yet. So Yu Feng came here every day to see if Lingshan was back or not. The heavens didn't disappoint the hardworking, and Yu Feng quickly bought a bunch of good food to celebrate with Lingshan, as well as to get closer to her. The Noble House meeting was just around the corner, and seeing that House Xiao had the support of the hidden House Pai, House Yu's position was in danger. Yu Feng knew that he had to get some support for his house in order to stand firm in the Noble House meeting. Lingshan didn't expect it to be Yu Feng, she frowned. What the hell was this guy doing? She'd only been back for half a day, and he was already at her doorstep. Lingshan was quite troubled. Lingshan looked at Yu Feng. Why were you here? What's up? Didn't I tell you? I'm here to celebrate your successful mission. Yu Feng smiled. This case is closed, so you don't have anything to do now, right? You can go on a date with me now, right? You know that my father and Grandpa Song both want us to get closer. Who told you I don't have anything to do? Haven't you been watching TV lately? There's been a lot of robberies and I need to hurry up and study the case. If you don't have anything to do, please go back, I need to work. Lingshan said. What? Yu Feng paused, remembering that the news did report on the recent robberies in Songshan, but it didn't have much to do with him, so he didn't think much of it. But now that Lingshan was talking about it, he realized that it had something to do with Lingshan. This person was too wicked. Why did he have to rob others for no reason? If he found out who did it, he would definitely beat him into a cripple. Yu Feng cursed the robbers inwardly. Weren't they ruining his good fortune? If you needed money, you could have gone somewhere else. Why did you come to Lingshan's turf? Are you purposely trying to mess with me? If that's the case. But we can't make an empty stomach. We can't not eat, right? It's almost time for dinner. It won't be too late to have a meal first before discussing the case, right? Yu Feng continued to persuade. No, it's not too late to eat after I finish studying the case. You eat first. Lingshan said faintly and turned to Yuqian. Let's continue our discussion. Ahem. Yu Feng felt a wave of annoyance. Why was this colleague of Lingshan's so blind? He'd already said that, and this guy was still sitting there as if nothing had happened. Why didn't he realize that he was a third wheel? Yu Feng coughed and hinted, it's time to get off work. Even if you're working overtime, you should at least eat first, right? Plus, even if you don't eat, your colleague has to eat, right? You can't let them go hungry, can you? It's fine, I'm not hungry. Yuqian said cooperatively. He knew that Lingshan hated Yu Feng and didn't want to be with him. Naturally, he'd help her. Yuqian's words infuriated Yu Feng. Are you an idiot or what? What's wrong with you? It was such an obvious hint and he couldn't tell? Yufeng didn't know what to do. Mister, I'm going to have dinner with my girlfriend, you go eat first, okay? Your girlfriend? Yuqian couldn't help but frown. He didn't want to get involved in this, after all Lingshan wasn't his girlfriend, and he didn't have the right to interfere. But Yufeng's words were getting more and more out of hand, and he couldn't take it anymore. Lingshan wasn't his girlfriend but she was his sister. She was very important to him and he could accept her being with someone she liked. As long as Lingshan was happy he wouldn't say anything. But Yuqian wouldn't allow someone she didn't like to harass her. If it was before, Qin Yuqian wouldn't have dared to challenge Yufeng. After all, Yufeng was a mystic class master, and he was only an early phase golden class master. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth, but now it was different. Both of them were mystic class masters, and Qin Yuqian had more confidence in his words. Naturally, Lingshan, what's wrong with this colleague of yours? Why is he sticking his nose into other people's business? Yufeng really wanted to slap Yuqian away, but for Lingshan's sake he didn't do anything. He only scolded Yuqian a little. I can ignore other people's business, but Lil Sis Lingshan's business I have to. Yuqian was pissed off by Yufeng's arrogant attitude. He stood up and looked at Yufeng coldly. Yufeng, is it? As a man you need to have a backbone. She doesn't like you and you're still following her around? What's the meaning of this? Do you think there's a point in doing this? Who do you think you are? Yufeng didn't think that this guy in front of him would call Lingshan Lil Sis, and say that he had to stick his nose in other people's business, and even say that he needed to have a backbone and stop harassing her. Who did he think he was? How dare he yell in front of him? If it weren't for Lingshan, Yufeng would have punched him already. My name is Qin Yuqian. Yuqian reached out his hand. I'm sure you've heard of my name. Ha. Yufeng looked at Yuqian's hand, not intending to shake it at all. Instead he started laughing. I was wondering who it was, so it's House Chen's little bastard. It's hard to say if your House Chen can keep its position in the noble house meeting, and you still dare to show off? Early phase golden class? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know if you've leveled up recently. Perhaps you're already a peak early phase golden class now. Yufeng, watch your words. Is the heir of House Yu like you? Yuqian retracted his hand. He was a little angry at Yufeng's attitude. Chapter 14:13. I'll talk to different people. How do you expect me to talk to a fallen noble house? Yufeng looked at Yuqian with disdain. I'll be honest with you. If it weren't for your girl's engagement with an ancient sect, House Chen would have been removed from the noble house list a long time ago. But we don't even know if that engagement is real or fake. There's been no news for so long, I'm afraid it doesn't count anymore. Yuqian's face turned ugly, but what Yufeng said was the truth. Of course it was the past. Yuqian indeed couldn't hold up the Chen house back then. He spent his time with Jianghu and the others, having fun and being called one of the Songshan young masters, but it was all too late. He'd missed the best age for practicing, seeing Lingshan step by step into the ranks of practitioners while Yuqian was stuck at the same spot. He'd decided to go out and train, going to the border and fighting with some smugglers and drug dealers, trying to ignite his potential. But because of his age, Yuqian didn't make any progress, until he met Instructor Eagle. It was a training, and it was said that the investigation department spent a lot of effort to invite Eagle to be their instructor. It was because of Eagle that Yuqian found the path of practicing and became a golden class early phase. However, even though he became a golden class master, he knew that he was still too weak. His current strength wasn't enough to support the entire House Chen. Many of the big boss's bodyguards were golden class masters, but Qin Yuqian had no other choice. He could only work hard and improve his cultivation at the same time. He understood that if it weren't for his sister's engagement, House Chen wouldn't be where it was today. But even Yuqian himself didn't believe in this engagement, let alone others. After so many years without any news, Qin Yuqian even thought that Grandpa purposely set up a maze for House Chen's development. Otherwise, why would an ancient sect like his little sister who was still in her infant years ago? It didn't make sense at all. Yufeng, don't go too far. Qin Yuqian said coldly, if we don't get along then you can leave. I still have work to discuss with Lingshan sis. Drive me away? Right, I suddenly remembered a rumor. Qin Yuqian, aren't you Lingshan's pursuer? You've been chasing after him for so many years, but you still haven't caught up. What's wrong? Are you afraid that I'll beat you to it? Yufeng humphed mockingly, but Yuqian, let me tell you, Lingshan and I are engaged by our families. You can't. There's nothing for you to do here. Hurry up and scram. Don't force me to chase you away. First of all, this is an office. I have work to discuss with Lingshan. Qin Yuqian said. Secondly, you should be the one to leave. You said it yourself, the marriage is arranged by the family, not by Lingshan herself. She doesn't like you and she already has someone else in her heart. If you know what's good for you, you should just give up in case you get rejected. It'll be embarrassing. Alright, I've said what I need to say. You can do as you please. Someone in her heart. Yu Feng's face darkened. You're saying that the person she's in love with is you? It's not you. Yu Qian couldn't say Lin Yi for Lingshan. Good. Very good. Yu Feng looked at Yu Tian, gritting his teeth and nodding. Qin Yu Tian, so you're saying that you're going to stick your nose into this? Of course. Yu Tian said firmly. Whether it was for Lingshan or Lin Yi, he had to do something about it. Since they'd reached this point, he might as well settle it. Yu Feng sticking to Lingshan every day would be a problem. You think you're something, don't you? Yu Feng didn't expect Yu Tian to go against him. These days Yu Feng felt like he was going to die. He'd lost all his face after being pushed around by Lin Yi, and he'd even let it out when he was angry. He'd even quit school and he hadn't had a chance to vent his anger yet. Now that Yu Tian from House Chen was here, he didn't need to be polite anymore. I don't think so, I'm just trying to reason with you. I'm telling you how annoying you are right now, Yu Tian said. Good, very good. Qin Yu Tian, since you're like this, then don't blame me for being impolite. Today I'll let you taste the consequences of sticking your nose in other people's business. With that, Yu Feng channeled his practitioner's arts and his qi surged out. He wasn't afraid of anything today. As far as he was concerned, it was Yu Tian who'd stuck his nose into other people's business. It was normal for him to teach Yu Tian a lesson. Plus, even if he beat Yu Tian up, what could House Chen do? They couldn't go to House Yu, could they? Would he dare? Mystic mid-phase? Yu Tian looked at Yu Feng. He didn't expect him to be a mystic mid-phase already. Humph, good that you know. Yu Feng smiled coldly. Qin Yu Tian, you're asking for it. Don't blame me for being impolite. Yu Feng, what are you doing? Lingshan didn't expect Yu Feng to channel his qi. She panicked. You want to fight? Fight? He doesn't deserve it, I'm just teaching him a lesson. Yu Feng said faintly. Teach me a lesson? Haha, do you think I'm still the Qin Yu Tian from before? With that, Yu Tian channeled his practitioner's arts, showing off his strength as a mystic early phase. Your mystic early phase? Yu Feng paused, surprised. Your mystic early phase? Haha, it's not just me, Lingshan is mystic early phase too. What's so great about being mystic mid-phase? Yu Tian said faintly. Lingshan is mystic early phase? How did you guys become mystic early phase? That's impossible. Yu Feng looked at Yu Tian in disbelief. That doesn't make sense. You were golden class early phase before, right? I heard that no matter how fast you level up, you can't be mystic early phase now. Lingshan was golden class late phase peak before, but she just broke through, right? How did she break through again? Humph, there's a lot of things you don't know. Yu Tian said proudly as he thought of Lin Yi. Lin Yi was really his lucky star. Ever since he met him, his luck kept on increasing, and his strength increased quite a bit. Chapter 14:14. Thinking of this possibility, Yu Feng's eyes turned red as he stared at Yu Tian hatefully. Answer me yes or no. Yes or no. This has nothing to do with you, Yu Tian said. So what if I am, so what if I'm not? Yu Feng, I hope that you can face this matter. Since Lingshan doesn't agree, then let it go. Don't be too stubborn, we're both men and I understand your feelings, but love is something that can't be forced. Yu Tian consoled Yu Feng out of good intentions, but thinking of his own situation he felt like he was in the same boat as Yu Feng, so he said a few more words. But he didn't know that his words sounded like mockery in Yu Feng's ears. Yu Feng's breathing quickened, and his expression was as if he was going to eat Qin Yu Tian alive. Why yeah, Qin Yu Tian, go die. With that, Yu Feng acted like a madman, striking out with both fists at Yu Tian's chest. Yu Tian didn't think that Yu Feng would attack him abruptly. There was no warning at all and this shocked him. He shouted "You!" and tried to dodge, but he was caught off guard and lost his chance. Plus, Yu Feng was a mid-phase mystic while Yu Tian was just an early-phase mystic. He hadn't gotten used to his new strength yet. Naturally, he was weaker than Yu Feng by a huge margin. And so, Qin Yu Tian was sent flying by Yu Feng's attack without any hesitation. Bam! A loud crash sounded, and Yu Tian's body flew out of Lingshan's office window. Yu Feng, are you trying to kill me? Lingshan didn't expect Yu Feng to do this, and it was a vicious one at that. She saw that Yu Feng didn't hold back at all, and Yu Tian flew out of the window. How could he recover from falling from such a high floor? Although mystic class masters could walk on walls and wouldn't be harmed no matter how high they jumped from, that was only when they used their qi to protect themselves. How could Qin Yu Tian use his qi to protect himself in a situation like this? Yu Feng didn't expect that he would be able to send Yu Qian flying out of the window. He wanted to teach Qin Yu Qian a lesson, but he didn't want to kill him. After all, Qin Yu Qian was the heir of House Qin. Killing him would put House Yu in a passive position. Teaching them a lesson was normal, but killing them would make House Yu look like a tyrant. If the other noble houses formed an alliance to fight against House Yu, it'd be a huge problem. He's a profound rank Gao Yiso? Plus, I wasn't trying to kill him. It was just an accident. Yu Feng pretended to be calm. After speaking, Yu Feng didn't linger and turned around to leave. Wait, you want to leave after hurting someone? Lingshan didn't love Yu Qian, but the two were friends now. Yu Qian was injured by Yu Feng, so how could she just let it go? Although she had no control over the conflicts between the aristocratic families, but to avenge her friend, she was duty-bound. It really is the early phase of the mystic class. Yu Feng's expression froze as a trace of anger flashed across his eyes. Are you going to avenge your lover? Lingshan didn't say anything as she channeled House Song's practitioner's arts, preparing to make Yu Feng stay. Yu Feng humphed coldly. In the end, he didn't make a move against Lingshan. Instead, he quickly left the office. Lingshan couldn't stop him if he wanted to run. Looking at Yu Feng's back, Lingshan was troubled, but there was nothing she could do. This matter could only be resolved in the noble house meeting. Noble houses had their own rules, and their conflicts had to be resolved in the noble house meeting. The secret investigation department could also mediate conflicts, but that was all they could do. This was also why Gong Gao didn't give Feng Tianlong any face back then. But the noble house meeting was hosted by House Yu, and Lingshan felt that there was little hope of reporting House Yu during the noble house meeting. Lingshan didn't chase after Yu Feng, she knew that she couldn't catch up. Mystic early phase and Mystic mid phase were 2 ranks apart, and they weren't even on the same level. She rushed downstairs and there were already many people surrounding Yu Tian. Many of them knew him, since he often went on missions with the police. Lingshan rushed over and saw Yu Tian covered in blood. Yu Tian bro, how are you? Lingshan panicked at the sight of his pitiful state. Even someone as strong as Lingshan felt the urge to cry. Yu Tian was simply too pitiful. His chest was covered in blood, and both his legs were fractured, exposing his white bones. It was a frightening sight. I'm fine. Yu Tian smiled bitterly and said weakly, I can still hold on. Yu Tian showed his strong side at this moment. He was a real man. Wait here, I'll call the ambulance. Lingshan said as she took out her phone to call the emergency center. Captain Song, we've already called the emergency center. One of Lingshan's colleagues said. Okay, thank you. Lingshan said quickly. A lot of people wanted to know who hurt Yu Tian like this, but seeing Lingshan's sad face they didn't ask. They wanted to wait for Yu Tian to go to the hospital first. Yu Tian knew that his injuries weren't life-threatening, but he knew that he had internal injuries. Most of the meridians in his body were broken by Yu Feng, especially when he fell from the building. Even if he recovered, the meridians in his legs wouldn't be able to recover. It would be hard for him to break through in the future, and even if he could cultivate, he wouldn't be able to maintain his mystic class early phase anymore. But Yu Tian didn't regret it, he didn't want to be a coward. He had to talk to Yu Feng about this, and this time Yu Feng had hit him. The marriage between him and Lingshan would probably be cancelled as well. House Yu would be in the wrong and they wouldn't continue this. But what would happen to House Qin? What would they do in the future? An ambulance siren sounded, and Yu Tian was carried into the ambulance. At this moment, Yu Tian's consciousness started to blur. House Qin's future and his dreams were intertwined, and it made Yu Tian feel sad and lost. He was supposed to be a mystic early phase with a bright future, but now he was crippled. Would his grandpa be sad if he knew about this? Chapter 14-15. This morning, Yu Tian had just told his grandpa the good news, telling him that he had reached the early phase of mystic class. His grandpa was so happy that his voice changed, but in the blink of an eye, he became a cripple again. How was he going to tell his grandpa? Yu Tian closed his eyes slowly and fainted after thinking about these troublesome things. Yu Feng didn't leave immediately. He stood not far from the police station and watched Yu Tian get carried into the ambulance. He let out a sigh of relief. It seemed like Yu Tian didn't die, but he was heavily injured. This was what Yu Feng wanted to see. If Yu Tian died, then House Yu would be in a passive position. Although House Yu was domineering as the host of the noble house meeting, they had power that other noble houses didn't have. But if they attacked other noble houses recklessly, then no matter how strong House Yu was, they wouldn't be able to withstand the retaliation of other noble houses. But now there was no problem. As long as Yu Tian didn't die, everything would be fine. Even if they brought this up in the noble house meeting, it would be a battle between the younger generation. If you were injured because you weren't strong enough, who could you blame? So, Yu Feng's responsibility was much smaller. Although House Chen was angry, they couldn't do anything to House Yu. If you're so capable, come and get revenge. This was the rule of the noble houses. If you're not satisfied, then fine. You can challenge any of your enemies in the noble house meeting. Besides, the challenge in the noble house meeting didn't care about life and death. If you're capable, you can kill your opponent, but on the other hand, your opponent can kill you too. This was the same as signing a life and death contract in the arena. The host of the meeting wouldn't favor either side. If you're capable, you can solve it yourselves. After you're done, you can sit down and have a meeting. But as the saying goes, every debt has its debtor. Whoever has the grudge, they can't ask for outside help. In other words, if the Qin family was bullied, then if you wanted to get back at them, it had to be someone from the Qin family. If you were a disciple of the Qin family or a relative, that was fine. But if you found outside help, it was absolutely impossible. In fact, this rule was to restrict House Yu. House Yu and the hidden House Yu had an unclear relationship. If House Yu asked for help from the hidden House Yu, then what would the others do? He could only wait for death to come. Of course, while House Yu and the hidden House Yu could be considered relatives, it wasn't a relationship that could be made public. This involved the hidden house's arbitration association, and if the hidden House Yu wanted to earn money, they couldn't openly admit their relationship with the common House Yu. Otherwise, once they did, the common House Yu would have to join the hidden House Yu, unable to earn money in the common world. So with this rule, House Yu couldn't go to the hidden House Yu to solve their conflict. When this rule was first made, House Yu wasn't too happy about it, but now Yu Feng saw it as the best. It was impossible for Qin Yutian to get back at the noble house meeting. Qin Yutian was the only cultivator in House Qin, and he was a cripple now. Challenging the noble house was the same as seeking death. Yu Feng wasn't afraid of him. Qin Yutian, how dare you steal my woman? Why don't you take a look at who you are? What's so great about being a mystic class master? I'm already a mystic mid-phase, crippling you is as easy as breaking a grasshopper's leg. Yu Feng said coldly as he watched the ambulance leave. But Yu Feng wasn't stupid. This incident didn't affect House Yu much, but he still had to report it to his father. Hello? Xiao Feng, what's the matter? Shueixing was practicing when his personal phone rang. Only Yu Feng and Boss Yu knew about this phone, and Shueixing didn't tell anyone else. This was an emergency phone, and unless something big happened, it wouldn't call. Father, I beat Qin Yutian up. Yu Feng didn't bother with small talk and told his father what had happened. What? Shueixing froze. Qin Yutian? Heavily injured? Shueixing had just woken up from his practicing state, and didn't know how to react. It's Qin Yutian from House Chen. I beat him up and he's probably crippled now. He won't be able to practice for the rest of his life, and even if he recovers, it'll be hard for him to progress. Yu Feng explained. Qin Yutian from House Qin? Why did you beat him up? House Yu doesn't care about a mere House Qin, and Qin Yutian is just a golden class. He doesn't conflict with our interests at all, and now that the noble house meeting is about to start, why are you still messing with House Qin? Aren't you just causing trouble? Shueixing's tone was displeased. Feng, why are you so impulsive? What's going on? Father, Qin Yutian isn't a golden class, he's a mystic early phase. Yu Feng said, and so is Lingshan. What? They're both mystic? How is that possible? Shueixing paused, not bothering about Yu Feng hurting Qin Yutian anymore. All his attention was on the two becoming mystic. I don't know, but I suspect that they're dual practicing together. Yu Feng couldn't help but grit his teeth as he spoke. Dual practicing? You're saying that Lingshan and Qin Yutian are dual practicing together? Shueixing vaguely sensed something, as if he could guess why his son was so angry, hurting Qin Yutian in a fit of rage. That's right. Yu Feng nodded. It's like this, Lingshan just came back from a mission and I bought some food to go to her office to celebrate her safe return, but I didn't think I'd see Qin Yutian in her office. Yu Feng told Shueixing everything that happened after that, not adding anything to the story. He didn't think that he'd done anything wrong and anyone else in his position wouldn't let this go so easily. After all, Lingshan was Yu Feng's fiancée in name, and now that someone else had gotten to her first, he'd be a coward if he didn't do something about it. I see. Shueixing understood his son's feelings after hearing the explanation. So that means that Lingshan hooked up with Qin Yutian first? If that's the case, then you can't blame House Yu. Chapter 14:16. And it's good to let him live, Shueixing nodded. That way House Qin can't say anything bad about me, we're all in the wrong here. Plus, if House Chen wants revenge, they can bring it up at the noble house meeting anytime they want. Someone in their family will be sad and I'll accept it. But I don't think they'll be able to cause trouble for me anymore. Yufeng continued. Oh. Shuixing had a flash of inspiration. That's right, Yufeng, you did a good job. Haha, now that I think about it, this is a good chance for House Yu. Not only will it not affect us, but it'll also make people think that we've lost big time. What do you mean? Yufeng paused. During the noble house meeting, I'm planning to cause trouble for House Chen and House Song, pushing all the blame onto them. They were engaged to House Yu to begin with, so why would they still be with House Chen? There's something wrong with House Chen's scion hooking up with someone else's fiancé? They'll definitely be accused of not being strict, and this way you've hurt Qin Yutian, which means that you've hurt the adulterer. You're Lingshan's fiancé, and catching the adulterer is the right thing to do. House Chen won't be able to say anything about this, and they'll even have to apologize to us. Haha, father, you've thought things through. This way the Qin clan can only suffer in silence. Hearing this, Yufeng relaxed a little. He was overjoyed. That's right, plus, you've killed a mystic from House Chen before he could grow. This is a huge contribution as well. If House Chen has a mystic, it'll be a threat to House Yu's position, Shuixing said. But the noble house meeting is around the corner, so you shouldn't stay in Songshan anymore. Go back to Yanjing immediately and don't go out these few days. We're not afraid of them in the open, but we're afraid that House Chen will go crazy and hire people to cause trouble for you. Don't fail miserably. Alright, I'll go back now. Yufeng nodded, suddenly remembering that Yu Tian's sister seemed to be quite close with Lin Yi. If this chick were to bewitch Lin Yi to cause trouble for him, then it would really be troublesome. After the meeting, Yufeng wasn't afraid of anything because the meeting was a place to resolve conflicts. The conflicts between the aristocratic families would be resolved during the meeting. If they didn't resolve it, it would be the same as giving up. There was no such thing as fighting to the death. If one of the aristocratic families brought up their past hatred after the meeting, it would be the same as violating the agreement of the meeting. Not only would they be viewed as enemies by all the aristocratic families, they would also be expelled from the ranks of the aristocratic families. Therefore, nobody would do such a thing. Yufeng boarded the flight to Yanjing, and in the hospital, Qin Yutian was just pushed out of the emergency room. The wounds on his body and leg were all bandaged up and he woke up as well. As a practitioner, his willpower wasn't something ordinary people could compare to. Brother Yutian, what do you think? Lingshan was anxiously waiting at the door of the surgery room. She went up to Yutian as soon as he came out. Lingshan, I'm fine. Yutian saw how worried Lingshan was. He felt a little touched but also a little bitter. He knew that Lingshan cared for him as a friend, but there were no other emotions involved. Yutian bro. You didn't have to do that. Lingshan sighed. Yutian said that he was fine, but looking at his bitter smile, Lingshan knew that it wasn't a light injury. He was a spiritual practitioner, and if his meridians were injured, it would be the same as crippling his path of practitioning. He wouldn't be able to progress any further on the path of practitioning. Even if Qin Yutian recovered, he wouldn't be able to maintain his strength anymore. It was already a miracle that he was able to stay at the golden class. It was almost impossible for him to break through to the mystic class, unless he had the legendary meridian opening pellet. However, that was something only the hidden houses had. Normal houses didn't have it. Lingshan, I've been a man for once. Yuqing couldn't help but say proudly, although I'm injured, I'm afraid that Yufeng won't bother you anymore. It's worth it. Thank you. Lingshan murmured, Yuqing bro, you're a good person but you can't force feelings. Logically speaking, Yutian had done so much for her and Lingshan had to do something for him. But Lingshan really didn't have any feelings for Yutian. She decided to make it up to him in other ways. I know. Yutian interrupted Lingshan. He knew that Lingshan was giving him a good person card, but Yutian didn't dwell on it anymore. Lingshan, let's not talk about that. Lin Yi is my friend and you could say that he's my master. My strength comes from him and it doesn't matter if I lose him. Even if I'm only golden class after I recover, it's still not bad. Yutian wasn't worried about himself but House Chen. He was injured so badly this time and House Chen was probably done for. But, House Chen Grandpa Chen. Lingshan was conflicted. Yutian didn't say it, but she knew that House Chen would be done for in the future. They would be removed from the list of noble houses. The only way was for House Song and House Chen to unite through marriage. That was the only way to keep House Chen's position. But Lingshan really couldn't accept that. So, that's the only thing I'm worried about. Disappointment flashed across Yutian's eyes. I wonder how sad Grandpa will be when he finds out about me. I told him that I advanced to the early phase of mystic class, and he laughed for 3 whole minutes. Other than the meridian opening pill, is there any other way to recover your strength? Ling Shan made up her mind. If there was, no matter what price she had to pay, she would find a way to help Yu Qin recover his strength.